kick the field goal. It'll be Jason Gingell out of the hole to Mesco. Good snap, good hold, and the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, and an early happy Thanksgiving to all. We certainly have so much to be grateful for, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend. For many of you, it's already underway today, but we're here working. Casey McAllister, when the boss is here, Trace Fowler, you better show up to go to work.
Yeah.
And then the Dunce has made an appearance today. Brandon Seho, hard at work over there. Gentlemen, good morning. Early happy Thanksgiving.
Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Tom.
Well, I mean, that was lame.
Good morning, Tom.
Well, you say good morning. Come on.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Amen.
Tom.
Now we're talking. We got everybody dialed in here on YouTube. By the way, as you know, we come your way off the bench presented by United Dairy Farmers Monday through Friday, 10 to noon Eastern. And you can find us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. Now, the boss man, Trace Fowler, has informed me just moments ago. We always ask that you please subscribe, and our analytics are back. What's more important than analytics in this world? The world revolves around analytics. Sports, life, whatever. But a not-so-fun fact we've come to learn, 76% of our live viewers, and that's by the hundreds if not thousands daily, are not subscribed. So please hit the subscribe button, turn the notification switch on. If you prefer to join us in podcast form, we are there. Wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever, just search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, and you're dialed in. All right, well, here we go. Since tomorrow is Thanksgiving, this is going to be like a Friday for us here on Off the Bench. So we will walk through the weekend schedule of college and pro games, and we have our picks coming up shortly. So you want to stay tuned for that. And especially considering that Trace Fowler is sitting in for Paul Trichner today. And you're the one making the picks today, correct?
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure
Yeah,
because you're in first place.
That's right. We're the leader in the clubhouse.
That's right. Bengals and Titans clash Sunday in Nashville. Of course, a rematch of the playoff game last year when the Bengals rolled in there, intercepted Ryan Tannehill 3 times. Won the game even though Joe Burrow was sacked, 9 times in that game? And they still won the game. Cincinnati in second place in the AFC North at 6-4. Tennessee, the division leaders of the AFC South at 7-3. I don't know if you're surprised. Trace, you're a gambling kind of a guy. Are you surprised the Bengals in Tennessee are a 1.5-point favorite in that game?
Slightly. I slightly am. Although we'll get to this later. For some reason, Vegas is not big fans of Tennessee, and I'm not sure why. We'll talk about that later.
Probably because Ryan Tannehill's a fraud, but
We got to get this guy some help.
Here we go again. All right, elsewhere inside the division, the leaders, Baltimore, a 4-point favorite in Jacksonville. The Brownies are home and a 3-point underdog to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Steelers will play Monday night in Indianapolis, and they're a 2.5-point underdog. Tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day and night, triple header comes your way. Buffalo played in Detroit last week, and Buffalo plays in Detroit this week. They had to move their game last week, of course, against Cleveland because of all the snow in western New York. Believe it or not, now it's not a surprise to Casey and Trace because apparently they must have told somebody that they were on the Lions bandwagon very early in the year. Somewhere they told somebody. I don't know if it's your fiance, Casey, Trace, I don't know if it's your kids, but somebody must have heard that.
Just have to listen, Tom.
Yeah, you just got to listen to us early on. We had to hide in the weeds for a while, but now we're back in full force.
Hey, don't look now.
The Lions, baby.
Well, I mean, believe it or not, the Lions, who now that we call them the Fighting Chris Spielmans, they've won 3 in a row, and they are right on the cusp. I mean, right there of contending for a playoff spot. They're 2 games back right now. If they can find a way to shock Buffalo and keep playing well, who knows? This game has a lot of intrigue. Buffalo is a 10-point favorite at Ford Field. In the NFC East tomorrow, inside that division, you have the Cowboys and the Giants. Cowboys coming off an unbelievable performance in Minnesota last week, and the Giants were awful last week, getting bludgeoned by the Fighting Chris Spielmans. They meet in Big D tomorrow. 2 teams, both 7-3, 2 games behind the division-leading Philadelphia Eagles. Dallas, at last check, a 9.5-point favorite. The nightcap tomorrow features New England at Minnesota. Both teams clearly very much in a playoff hunt. Patriots at 6-4. If you're a Bengals fan, and many of you are, you better be rooting for Minnesota. Because right now, tie breaks, and I know we got 7 games left in the season, but New England right now holds a lot of tie breaks ahead of the Bengals should they tie for a final playoff spot. A lot of football to go, though. Minnesota, a 3-point favorite at home. College football. I mean, when those college football playoff rankings came out last night, was I the only one expecting Ohio University to be on there? Am I the only one? How are they not on there?
It's a shame.
I mean, their losses are against teams like Penn State, Iowa State. I mean, they've ripped off 7 wins in a row. The best player in the Mid-American Conference, their quarterback, Curtis Rourke, was injured last week. And come to find out, they announced before the game yesterday that his season is over. Torn up knee. So what happens? They run out C.J. Harris as a starting quarterback. With the MAC East title on the line at Peden Stadium in Athens last night, Mr. Harris runs for 3 touchdowns. He throws for another in a 38-14 win. It's off to the MAC championship game next week for the Ohio University Bobcats. Did I take my sweatshirt home? Where is that thing?
It's right here.
It's over there. I was going to wear it today, but we have guests today.
I have a question. Is Rourke a senior?
He is a junior.
So he'll come back next year.
He'll come back next year.
Ooh.
Good Lord willing. But it's a serious knee injury. But he will win the MAC Player of the Year. There's no doubt about it. Miami beat Ball State last night, 18-17. That means the Redhawks are 6-6, and that means they're bowl eligible. Congratulations to the Miami Redhawks. And that's hard to say coming from a Bobcat. All right, now the big leaguers, right? Everything gets rolling this weekend. UC plays at Tulane. That game is Friday night. A win means a trip to the American title game against UCF, a team that hammered UC early in the year. But because UCF lost last weekend to Navy, if UC beats Tulane, they would host at Nippert Stadium UCF for the championship game. Still with a shot at a New Year's Six Bowl. The top 4 teams in the college football playoff rankings remain unchanged. No surprise there. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU. The big shocker, however, was LSU, Trace Fowler. I mean, all you do is badmouth LSU. All you do is badmouth them. USC is 6th. Brandon Seho, all he does is rip Brian Kelly up one side and down the other. They play Texas A&M this week. And then it's off to you-know-where. Championship game against the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, they're right there. There's never been a 2-loss team, never, since the college football playoffs started in 2014 that made the Final Four.
Throw the whole list out.
Why?
Because LSU's bad.
How much are the dogs
Did you
gonna
say
beat them by?
bad?
You heard me.
How much are the dogs going to beat them by?
Probably 24 points, something like
that's
that.
tough.
So will
Well,
you
I'd take
be
some of that action.
will you be wildly upset if this is a close game? Even if Georgia wins?
Yes, I will. Yeah, I'm actually. We'll get into this later. This really bothers me. And genuinely, it bothers me.
Okay, we're going to get into this short.
We
We got
talked about
plenty of time to talk about
I've
this.
defended the SEC bias for years, and this is the first year where I feel like it's really, really reared its ugly head. It's ridiculous.
Well, when you're including, and the committee came out last night, and Boo Corrigan, who is the head of the College Football Playoff Committee, it's a 2-year, I think, rotating thing. He's the athletic director at NC State. His father, legendary Gene Corrigan, in the ACC and Notre Dame. But anyway, he was asked on the show last night, if you didn't see it, why is LSU ahead of USC? USC has lost one game. Their only loss was on a successful 2-point conversion by Utah on the road at Utah. And he made the comment that the committee went back and forth, a lot of time spent on this deal, and felt like LSU's wins over Alabama, and this is where he lost me, and Ole Miss were better wins than USC. And their wins have been against who? They didn't play Oregon this season, so they beat UCLA and Oregon State. Now, that will change, or will be interesting to see. And we're going to ask Urban Meyer about this a little bit later on today. That, we saw it back with TCU years ago when Ohio State leapfrogged them, even though TCU was undefeated in the final ranking. Would USC leapfrog LSU
Well, LSU
by beating Notre Dame and then beating either Oregon or Washington in the Pac-12 title game next week?
We'll talk about this at length in a minute, but LSU has to beat Georgia to get in, obviously. So if they were to beat Georgia, the committee's already set up.
Yep.
They've already set it up. They've already made it to where LSU is going to get in if they beat Georgia, which is it's atrocious. It's a disgusting act.
USC has one ranked win against UCLA. LSU has 2 top.
Yeah, I was just about to say that USC just has one ranked win all season long, and they lost to Utah 43-42, and we already discussed that 2-point conversion nonsense, whatever. LSU leapfrogging USC, I do feel like is kind of atrocious. I don't think it's as nearly as egregious as he's making it out to be, but I mean, it should be USC first and in line to make it into the top 4, if you ask me.
Okay. All right. Well, Anonymous, who's with us every single day, says, I don't see what the big deal is. All USC has to do is beat Notre Dame, and they will leapfrog LSU and the loser of Ohio State, Michigan.
But he's wrong in the sense that they've already set the precedent that if LSU were to beat Georgia, they automatically are in. If they don't lose this week.
It's a great point. I tell you what.
And they also
set
they've
the
also
fly on
set
the wall.
They set the precedent too. If we want to get into the weeds on this, it really is irritating because Alabama is ahead of Clemson. In what world do they deserve to be ahead of Clemson?
Dude, Clemson's not very good.
They
are not very good. I mean,
but they've won all their games. They've lost to Notre Dame, who's obviously seems like a reputable team to lose to, right?
Yeah, but they
have
so
a quarterback
much flux.
situation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What makes us think that Alabama's good? They almost lost to Texas A&M on a 2-point conversion.
But they also are a couple of plays away from being undefeated.
Well,
they lost the shootout
what about
in Tennessee.
What about Texas? Are we going to forget about that?
No, they did Texas. I mean, give me a break. Texas.
I'm saying, what about
you're saying that opening game. Yeah, Quinn Ewers gets hurt in the first quarter. I hear what you're saying. I think Texas would have won that game.
And they got a lot of breaks in that game, too, if we want to be honest. I mean, the guy got sacked in the end zone, and somehow miraculously he got the ball off without his button hitting the end zone. And like Alabama always does, they seem to find a way to get the call when they need it the best. So I just think that it's completely biased of the SEC in this year. The SEC non-conference outside of Georgia have done what? When have they proven their dominance this year? LSU went on the road, or they played Florida State at the beginning of the year. Florida State beat them, but now the ACC's terrible.
It's a legitimate point.
I mean, they literally have not beaten anyone out of conference. They've not beaten anyone out of conference.
Can't argue with that.
So if you want to sit here and act like everyone's good in the SEC and they all beat up on each other, that's great. Wait until
Georgia did destroy. You're saying besides Georgia?
Besides Georgia, which Georgia has beaten the hell out of everyone in the SEC.
Yeah.
So maybe Georgia's just the one outlier. And I would argue for years and years and years, Alabama has been that.
Of course.
So the league's been propped up by two programs for a long time. In Alabama, in Georgia.
And LSU had a nice run there.
And LSU had their one run with Joe Burrow.
Right.
So I have a problem with LSU being that high ranked. Losing by 30 points to a Tennessee team who's trash. And they lost to Florida State. And they're probably going to lose this week to Texas A&M if we're being honest.
They're not going to lose.
All right.
They're not going to lose. We'll get to our picks shortly, though. The game, and it is the game, is in Columbus, Ohio on Saturday. The Mighty Buckeyes clash with TTUN. That's what Urban will call them here shortly. Both teams are undefeated. The winner advances to the Big Ten championship game next weekend. The Buckeyes are a 7.5-point favorite. Many questions, especially at the running back position for both teams. Clearly a major strength for both teams, but the star running backs for both teams are hurt. Who will play? Who won't? We're going to find out Saturday in Columbus. Urban Meyer joins the program as our big interview coming up in a little less than 30 minutes from now at 10:45. He'll be covering the game for Fox, and we'll get his thoughts. Georgia takes on Georgia Tech. TCU undefeated. Host Iowa State Saturday. That's a 4 o'clock game. Talked about LSU at Texas A&M. And then USC Notre Dame in the Coliseum from Los Angeles Saturday night on ABC. The Trojans a 5.5-point favorite. College basketball last night in Maui. Ooh.
Golly.
Ooh, boy. Ooh.
That was terrible.
UC, I mean, they just get run over by Ohio State, 81-53. The Bearcats are trying to at least get one win before they have to wash all the sand off their toes and come back to the heartland. They will play Louisville, who stinks, at 7:30. The Buckeyes play at 2:30 against number 21 Texas Tech. Xavier tomorrow out west, 5:30 against Florida. And so a lot going on in college basketball, college football, the NFL, Thanksgiving, the whole 9 yards. You boys want to discuss anything before we get to picks? Anything on your mind, like World Cup or anything like that?
Well, we actually just had another major upset. Japan beat Germany in the World Cup.
No kidding.
So that's another big deal.
That is a big deal.
Crazy World Cup stuff happening right now. It's a shame that we're not more into soccer. That's for sure.
We? Is that a French word for yes, or what is that? We?
All of us together here in this room, collectively.
Look, we have nothing against soccer. We have said that before. We have nothing against it. Nothing. And that is a huge upset. Second big one in as many days, right? Saudi Arabia beats Argentina.
Yep.
And now Germany, which, forever and a day. I know enough about soccer to know that they've been a powerhouse. Maybe not as much lately, right?
Right.
When does the United States play again?
Friday.
Against England.
Yes.
Now, do they take the top 2 teams of every group? Is that how it works? You have 4 teams in a group. So in the United States group, you have England, the United States, Wales, and Iran. Correct?
Right.
Right. England's already beaten Iran. U.S. and Wales play to a tie. Right?
Yeah.
And then the top 2 teams qualify then for the next round. Is that how it works?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a knockout round after that?
Knockout stage is what they call it. I feel like if you're a soccer guy, you got to know this stuff, Casey.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a knockout stage after this. The only reason I know that is I still get the old school Sports Illustrated, and they had a World Cup edition, and I was bored. Well, not bored, but I had some time to kill, and I flipped through it and was reading a little bit and learned a few things, and still wasn't all that interested, to be fair. But
okay.
But yeah, top 2 get out, and I guess it goes by goal differential or like margin of victory.
Right.
Yep.
So there's a good chance that the U.S. just need to keep this game close against England. If we tie and we win, I think that's a big, big win for the United States.
No, there's no doubt about it.
But more importantly, we got to keep it close, and then we got to try to beat the brakes off of Iran.
Well, England killed them. I think the final score was 6-2. Right?
But it's going to come down to us and Wales, though. That's the thing.
They would have to play again.
No. They wouldn't play again. I'm saying like that's more than likely Wales and the United States are going to be fighting for that second spot to get in.
I got you.
It comes down to who keeps the game closer between England and who can blow out Iran.
I got you. So you play every team one time in your group, and then whoever has the most points, you get so many points for a win. I think it's 3 for a win, right, and 1 for a tie.
Right.
And whoever has the most points. See, Casey, I'm a little bit dialed in on this stuff.
Yeah, there you go. You're right there.
I'm right there. I'm right there. What else would you expect from off the bench? Okay, anything else on your mind before we get to picks? Again, Urban Meyer, kind enough to join us here today. Look, I gave you a heads up on the deal yesterday. We are not getting into any of his tenure, very short tenure as a one-year NFL coach today. We're not doing it. We're talking college football, about his career as a coach, 3 national championships, all the stops along the way. And then we're going to talk to him about this whole college football playoff ranking thing. He came out quite strongly 2 days ago. It was all over the news yesterday where he thinks that both teams in the Big Ten that are playing in Columbus on Saturday should be in the college football playoff, both Ohio State and Michigan. We'll ask him about that. We'll ask him about the college football committee, his thoughts. I don't think he votes on that thing. I'm pretty sure he doesn't as a member of the media. Inside that committee about LSU, which we've discussed a little bit, being ahead of SC. And we'll talk to him about expansion of the college football playoff. It's really interesting if you go to The Athletic, and I talk about that site all the time because if you're a sports fan, a couple bucks a month, I think it is, it's unbelievable the amount of content that there is there and so many great writers and so forth. But every week after the rankings come out, they put out what a 12-team college football playoff would look like. And in their opinion, you've got the top 4 there, and then they each would have a bye, and then they would play the winner of this and this, the winner of that and that, blah, blah, blah. And it's really interesting. I mean, some of the games that you would have Alabama and Tennessee playing one another, and the winner plays Ohio State.
That's fun.
That's fun stuff. And you'd have Michigan and somebody obviously really good. Michigan, LSU, I think it was. And the winner of that game would play TCU, and so on and so forth. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, our picks for college and the National Football League. Stay with us.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
also when I lost in Anaheim, my dad was at the game, and my dad was down and out and sad. And see, back then the older generation, a lot of times they would use negative motivation as like you can't do this or hey man, you won't do that. Where nowadays you can't use negative motivation, to the young kids, because a lot of them will just sit out on you and quit. You know what I mean? So my dad, never forget, and I've told people this. He told me, he said, son, I don't know if you'll ever win one, a pennant or not. We didn't win it that year in San Francisco because we had them down. You know what I mean? And he says, I don't know if you'll ever win one, after this. And that's the first thing that I thought about was say, hey, Dad, you're wrong again. I mean, I swear that's the first thing I thought about. Dad, you're wrong.
Everybody wants to say, Dad, you're wrong, right? There's.
All right.
All right, we're back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We thank so many of you that are dialed in and coming up here shortly. Urban Meyer. Everything that's college football. All right, gentlemen, here we go. Trace is sitting in for the duo of Brandon and Paul. And right now, that duo and now trio is the leader in the clubhouse.
Do we need to update the picks graphic to put Paul, Trace, and Brandon?
I don't think so, no.
The boss says no, it's no. If he says yes, you put him up there and bounce the other two
If
clowns.
anything, make
End
it
of
like
story.
call it the second seed or something. I mean, you don't need to put three people's names.
A lot of
on
pressure.
it.
A lot of pressure on Trace.
There's some pressure, but I like pressure.
A lot of pressure.
Pressure's
You want to
fun.
see the records so far?
Let's see him.
Let's see them.
Go ahead.
Look at that. 21 games over 500. Wow.
About to be more.
And Casey, 17 over. Impressive. But I'm slowly closing that gap. Come a long way to get back in it. All right, so here we go. And I want to remind you, by the way, you may have noticed, right here, Pawnee Water, it's an all-new premium alkaline water that's out right now. And I got to tell you, it is fantastic. Their offices are right across the street. Really good guys right here in Hamilton. Pawnee uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water that is the best tasting water in the world. Visit their website at Pawnee. It's spelled P-A-H-H-N-I. P-A-H-H-N-I water.com and see where you can buy this great tasting water. Glad to have them as part of the program and here on Chatterbox Sports. There's how you spell it right there.
Good stuff.
Really good stuff. They dropped off a case here the other day and say ho, much like a case of beer gets dropped in front of them, and all of a sudden the case is here no more.
There's some truth to that.
There's a lot of truth to that. A lot. All right, here we go, man. You ready?
We're ready.
Let's do it. We start with the Bearcats playing on Friday night. Is this game at home? I thought it was on the road.
It's at home.
It's at home. Okay. At noon on Friday. Wow, thank you. Okay, UC at home. Oh, you got to take the Bearcats here. Although Tulane, man, I mean, they must be pretty good. I haven't watched them, but they put up 59 on SMU. SMU may not be great, but UC didn't put 59 on SMU. That was a pretty tight game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take the Bearcats. I'm going to ride with them. Luke Fickell, leader of men.
I mean, with all the unknown about Evan Prater starting and the injury.
Yes.
I'm taking Tulane. You
have beaten down the Bearcats every single week.
I'm pretty positive last week was the first time they covered in like 7 weeks.
You might be right.
So they're due.
So they're due to lose another one.
Oh, okay.
So you're saying they're going to lose the game?
Pretty much is what he's saying.
Yeah, I think they're going to lose the game.
Okay. Trace?
Unfortunately.
All right, here's the thing. If you thought that I'm going to sit up here and for the last 5-6 weeks talk about how Prater needs to at least get some reps to see what we got going into next year, going into the big mighty Big 12, and I'm going to pick the Green Wave over top of when I've been champion to start Evan Prater, I don't know how Evan Prater's going to do, but at least we get to find out. At least we know. I would hate to start, no offense to Ben Bryant, but I'd hate to start a fifth-year senior all year long, go into the Big 12 and still have no clue what we're going to get out of Prater. So, blessing in disguise for Bearcats, in my opinion. I'm going to take the Bearcats.
Okay. All right, next up, we have the big one. Oh, boy. Ooh, I reached into my wallet, and believe me, there were a lot of cobwebs that came out. A lot. Reached into that wallet to buy tickets for this one. Can't miss it, though. Can't miss it. Be right there at the shoe. Bucks are favored by 7.5, and the mighty Buckeyes advance to the Big Ten title game. Hammering!
Was there any doubt?
TTUN.
Surprise pick of the day.
Wow.
Yeah, shocker.
I'm really surprised.
Right here. Right here.
Oh, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
What do you got, Casey?
I got Ohio State. I'm just following our system here at Chatterbox.
He's a believer, baby.
I'm believing in the system. Trace has got a better explanation of it, but the spread shows that they really like OSU over Michigan here. So, and I don't know if one running back really makes a difference for Michigan on this one.
I don't know about that. Michigan has got a great offensive line, better than the offensive line that just plowed through the Bucks last year, although the Buckeyes bring in Jim Knowles as defensive coordinator. They're a top 10 defense. So that's the story of the game. I mean, that's the story of the game. What happens on the line of scrimmage, both sides. You can say that about a lot of games, and there are a lot of great stars and skill guys. But this game is going to be won and lost between the tackles, both sides of the ball. Trace?
Yeah, I to Casey's point, make it relatively quick. For whatever reason, I thought that, in my mind, that if the line would have come out at about 4 points or so, then I thought that would have been maybe kind of fair. I feel like most people are going to see this line and think they're getting a touchdown with Michigan, and the square out there is going to be like, oh, man, you got to take the points. I don't know what it is. Perhaps it's just revenge, and also the fact that I don't know, maybe the Blake Corum kid's not going to play, and maybe there's some inside info on that, and they know that, so they're hedging their bet on that. I'm going to go with Ohio State personally.
Okay. I know that hurt you to take Ohio State, but that's okay.
I don't know.
It hurt us both.
It does.
Let's be real.
It does. That's all right.
And he even wore blue, like you told him not to.
I did.
You see that?
Ryan Day.
This is black.
Ryan Day.
Yeah, well, we'll see, guys.
Leader of men. All right, who's next up?
We got TCU.
Sonny Dykes.
There's another leader of men. Sonny Dykes coaching him up. I was with a few buddies last night, and they're like, man, that was unbelievable. You practice it, you rarely ever have to do it. Offense goes off, field goal unit races on, tick, 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 40 yards, bang, they win, and they're going to roll over Iowa State. They will cover that 10.
Yeah, punch in their ticket for the college playoffs.
Well, they got to win next week in the Big 12 title game.
They do.
They got to go undefeated.
I think they will.
And I'm telling you what, man, Kansas State is good.
Real easy.
They are good.
I'm taking TCU as well.
All right, straight across the board. The Horned Frogs. We're rooting for them. Or many of us are. LSU, 9-2. Been a bad year for Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. That is a 10-point spread. I'm taking the Aggies to cover this one. I think LSU wins, but I'm taking Texas A&M to cover. Against the fighting Brian Kellys.
I will too. I think they'll cover. I don't know if they'll win. I'm not that confident in this pick. How do you feel, Trace? How do you feel about this game?
I love this pick. This might be my favorite pick of the weekend. I am not a believer in LSU. I've told you guys last week that Tennessee was frauds. I'm telling you right now, LSU is right in that same boat, paddling along with Tennessee. They are the biggest frauds going right now. And it's not their fault that the country's putting them at 5, okay? It's not their fault. If they were down at 10, I wouldn't be talking like this. But they put them at 5. And just like Tennessee, when they got put at 5, they got boat raced the next week. I don't know what Jimbo's cooking down there, but he's cooking up a win. I don't know by how much, but only one matters. So they might blow them out just like South Carolina blew out Tennessee, but don't be surprised when the A&M fighting Aggies.
All right, then I'm changing my pick.
Oh, baby.
I'm changing my pick. I've got to find a way. Tiger, this guy's the biggest front runner on the planet. I'm changing my pick to LSU. I've got to find places to make
lost.
up some ground here.
You just lost
I
ground, Tom.
I might have lost, but I flipped mine to LSU.
Man.
I'm taking the fighting Brian
What
Kelly.
a shame.
I don't walk around bad-mouthing Brian Kelly like everybody else around here.
What?
All right, USC at home, 5.5 points. Favored over Notre Dame. I'm taking Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish, or the Fighting Leprechauns.
The Fighting Leprechauns. And, of course, I'm taking my Fighting Leprechauns. Let's go.
You have to.
I'll make it quick. I'm gonna take USC.
Ooh, I don't blame you for that. I really don't.
Take USC.
USC, their offense is really good. Their defense is I mean, they're all. You can talk about LSU all you want. I mean, USC's defense is just. And Boo Corrigan talked about that yesterday on the college football playoff rankings. Their defense is just brutal. Okay, is that it in the college game?
That's it.
All right, now we go to the pros. We start with the Bengalis. Surprisingly, 1.5 favorite at Tennessee. I'm going to ride the Joe Burrow train.
I don't blame you.
I wouldn't blame you either. I'm not surprised that it's not more, honestly. I think Bengals should be at least like a 7-point favorite in this one because Ryan Tannehill is terrible. He stinks. They're going to show it why he stinks this week.
Unbelievable.
I'm not going to go on a limb and say Ryan Tannehill is terrible. I think he's serviceable. I would say Ryan Tannehill can win a Super Bowl with the right group around him. But for whatever reason, I like the Bengals to bounce back here and win a football game. And what my point was about the Titans earlier, Vegas has been wrong with the Titans multiple weeks in a row.
They had them covered like 7 or 8 weeks in a row.
They had them 14-point underdogs out there in Arrowhead Stadium, and that was a tight game.
Yes, it was.
So think about that. And
with
then,
a backup quarterback.
Well, that's probably part of that whole 14 points, I would say. But then they just made them 3-point underdogs against the lowly Packers, who are terrible. Now, I know Packers beat the Cowboys the week before, but this league's kind of like that. So, having said that, they made them underdogs again this week, so there's a little hesitancy there, but I'm going to take the Bengals.
Off the beaten path for a second, Don reminds us it is $2 beer night tonight for the Cyclones.
Oh, yeah.
Brandon Seho will be in line at noon. All right, next up we have the Ravens at the Jaguars. Baltimore, a 4-point road favorite. I'm taking Baltimore.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, Tom.
All right, come on, boys. We got Urban coming up shortly.
This is the Jaguars all the way for me. Why isn't this spread more? It's because Vegas doesn't like the Ravens against this matchup here. The Jaguars are going to probably win this game, honestly. I can smell a win.
Trace?
Yeah, this is another game. Casey heard me talking yesterday about the Jags. I'm a big Jags fan this weekend.
I'm making up big ground this week. Okay.
I love it.
What do we got? We got the Thanksgiving Day games, right? Or are we getting to Cleveland first?
We got
Brownies,
Cleveland.
I said I wouldn't do it. I did it, and now I'm saying it, and never will again. Tom Brady and the Bucs favored by 3.5. I'm taking Tom Brady and the Bucs in Cleveland.
Yep, and I'm also taking the Bucs. They're 5-5, not 7-3. That's my mistake. But I'm not betting against Tom Brady. The Browns stink. What more do I need to say?
Okay.
Yeah. If Tampa had the same schedule as the Browns, they'd have a worse record than the Browns. So I'm taking the Browns. There's that.
Wow. Okay, now we get to
That's right.
Thanksgiving Day feast, triple header. In Detroit, Buffalo a 9.5-point favorite. I changed on this one. I wanted to go with a fighting Chris Spielman's, but I changed because I got to find a way to make up some ground.
What?
I told
You're going to change live on the program?
I'm going with the Bills. Although I think Detroit is going to win the game, but I'm just picking Buffalo because I got to make up some ground.
Well, Tom, I'm sorry that we have to do this to you, but
yeah, this is the Lions
this
bandwagon
is the Lions.
over here. We'll keep it moving really quickly, but this is the Lions. What do they call themselves?
The fighting Chris Spielman's.
No, what do they really call themselves? What's their? We don't even know what their fandom is. We'll find that out for next week. We'll put ourselves in there.
Okay. Isn't it something Lion Pride or Go Pride or something?
We're part of the Pride.
I've
Lion
heard that
Pride.
tired. I mean, come on.
Lions Den, right?
The Lions Den.
Lions Den, yeah. Sure. Den of Thieves. All right. Giants v. Cowboys, Dallas at 9. The Cowboys looked great last week. I'm not saying they're going to look great every week, but I just don't think the Giants are very good. I've never been a believer in Daniel Jones. So I'm taking Dallas. Big.
Yeah, and I am also taking Dallas. Giants stink. What more needs to be said?
Yeah, I think the Lions exposed the Giants last week, and that being said, I'm going to take the Jerry Joneses as well.
Okay. The fighting Jerry Joneses.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Motor City Kitties.
Motor City Kitties.
So I'm not saying that. That's one of our chat members. All right. Patriots 6-4 v Minnesota. This is Kirk Cousins again out of that 1 o'clock window that everybody made a big deal about. He got sacked 7 times by the Cowboys last week. He had no chance. But they're going to beat New England and cover 2.5. Vikes. Skol!
Yeah, I think the Vikings are frauds, but I think the Patriots are worse. So it's a tough one for me to choose, but I got to go with the Vikings. The spread's not big enough for me.
Trace?
I am going to take – I don't know what the time is on this game. I know what our chat's going to be talking about right now.
It's the night game on
No
Thursday.
Leif Erikson today.
The chat's going to be talking about that 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins, and that's not going to help him this week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oof.
So I'm going to take Bill Belichick because he is
a primetime machine.
He is a primetime kind of guy.
We're all wondering, where's Leif? Leif Erikson.
I'm sure he'll be back at some point.
He's a regular member of the chat, and he's not here. Maybe he's already up in Minnesota.
Could be.
Yep, he might be up there with real men out there in the outdoors. No internet, none of that stinking kind of thing up there for real men doing a little ice fishing.
Tom,
you guys ever been ice fishing?
No, I have not.
Nope. I did some digging, though, on the SEC and their big-time wins out of conference.
And?
You ready
Before
for
we
them?
get to break, go ahead.
Outside of the lowly, well, I don't want to call them lowly. That's disrespectful. But outside of the Power 5, inside the Power 5, Tennessee, I don't know if you remember, but they went on the road and played that tough Pittsburgh team, playing out of that league that we all make fun of.
Barely won.
Overtime.
Yep.
Well, yeah, overtime.
Yeah, overtime.
And let's not forget, LSU, they did lose to Florida State, but we got to give them credit because they bounced back and they beat Southern. So,
dude, everybody has those patsies on their skin. I mean, everybody does. Come on. Have you seen Michigan's TTU?
Oh yeah, well, my bad. They beat New Mexico and UAB as well out of conference.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Urban Meyer will join the program to talk about all this going on and his storied career. I can't remember what the number of games is, but the highest winning percentage of any coach in the history of college football. Went 83-9 in 7 years at Ohio State. Has won 3 national championships. But now he's just like the rest of us schleps. Member of the media. All right, we're back in a minute.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
Urban Frank Meyer III was born in Toledo, Ohio in July of 1964. He grew up in Ashtabula, Ohio, and in 1982 was a 13th round draft pick to play baseball as a shortstop by the Atlanta Braves. He did that in the minor leagues for a couple of years. He came to the University of Cincinnati to play football, and it's where he would start his coaching career, believe it or not, at St. Xavier High School. After earning his master's degree at Ohio State, coaching there as a grad assistant under Earl Bruce, it was off to Illinois State, Colorado State, then to Notre Dame as an assistant under Lou Holtz. 4 years later, he became a head coach for the first time at Bowling Green, then went on to Utah, where they ripped off 22 out of 24, including an undefeated 2004 season. In 2006, the Florida Gators, where he won a national championship his second year, beating Ohio State. 2 years later, with Tim Tebow, they won it all again, killing Oklahoma in the title game. And then, of course, after a couple of years out, Ohio State came a-calling. He won 7 Big Ten championships in 7 years, won a national championship, and never lost to, as they say, that team up north. Not one time did he lose. He'll be in Columbus for the game on Saturday as part of the Fox pregame show. He and his wife, Shelley, proud parents of 3 kids. He's even a grandfather now. Urban Meyer, welcome to Off the Bench. How are you, young man?
I'm doing good, Tom. Great to see you.
Nice seeing you, too. Where to begin? You grew up an Ohio guy, but as I mentioned a little while ago, you're a baseball player. Was baseball your first love more so than football?
No, football has always been my first love. I was a little better at baseball. I had some football scholarships, and then and Cincinnati was the highest level that I was offered. And then baseball, I started getting my senior year. I had a really good year, and they started talking about getting drafted into Major League Baseball. And I had a really good senior year and was drafted by the Atlanta Braves in June, and made a decision to sign. Football has always been my first love, but baseball, I love baseball. But baseball, hard to say no when the Atlanta Braves pick you on that draft day.
So you come to UC. You're a proud alum of UC. You still have kept in contact with a number of your friends that you went to the University of Cincinnati with when you come back here into town. You start your coaching career at St. Xavier High School, right?
I did. I was still finishing up at Cincinnati, and some contacts were made, and Steve Rasso, the legendary high school coach at St. X, is a Cincinnati graduate, and I was only there for a couple months, and then Tom Lichtenberg, who was a quarterback coach at Ohio State, was good friends with Steve Rasso, and my goal was to be a graduate assistant. And obviously I've been a Buckeye as far back as I can remember, and that was when that phone call came, that was a yes immediately.
What was the influence that Earl Bruce had on you in your career? I mean, obviously he brought you on board as a grad assistant there, but when you came in, all of a sudden there was a lot of turmoil there with him, and he was going to get fired, and they asked him to coach the Michigan game. The athletic director resigns. But what did Earl Bruce, the coach and the man, mean to you?
Earl was like a father to me. He was very similar to my father, and they became great friends. But I mean, Earl was tough as nails. There was no gray area. Right versus wrong. A premium place on academics. I remember our first staff meeting in 1986. He told all of us we'd be fired immediately if our players didn't graduate. We had to keep in our wallet. We had to keep. This is well before iPads and cell phones, and we had to keep all the players' records as far as when their tests were, their tutors, the GPA, what they need to graduate. And that came from Woody Hayes. And so I carried so much of the things I learned from Earl Bruce throughout my career about about premium place. He used to say premium place on education and making sure your players graduate. Also, following the rules. The one thing that I credit the Big Ten Conference with Bo Schembechler and Earl Bruce and Woody Hayes that, you hear a lot about the cheating and things that go on in college football. You just don't hear about that in the Big Ten. And why is that? There's a culture of compliance. And that's what Earl Bruce meant to me, and that's what I believe Bo Schembechler, Woody Hayes, and guys like Earl Bruce meant to the Big Ten Conference.
All right, so you go off after you leave Ohio State. You're at Illinois State. You're at Colorado State. And then how did you land at Notre Dame under Lou Holtz?
Well, Skip Holtz is his son is a great friend of mine, and I was at Colorado State a long time, 6 years. Both our daughters were born there, and we had opportunities to leave. And Shelley, quite frankly, she said, "We're not leaving." We had those conversations many times. We loved it there, but there were 3 schools that I told her that if they ever called, I got to go. And ironically, one was Ann Arbor, Columbus, and Notre Dame. And we used to joke around and said her majority word becomes a minority word when one of those 3 schools. I take over 51% of the relationship if one of those schools called. And sure enough, Lou Holtz gave me a call one day, and she was real upset because she knew that if I had a chance to go to Notre Dame, of course I'd take that.
I've been around you when you've told stories about trying to go recruit guys, cats that grow up down in Florida and California and all that, the great weather, and all of a sudden you roll them into South Bend, Indiana when you're allowed to recruit in December and January. That's got to be a tough sell, Coach, even though it's Notre Dame.
Yeah, when you heard the words lake effect, you tried to change the schedule, So Michiana, they call when Lake Michigan, when that snow comes rolling over that lake into South Bend, it was hilarious. I mean, I was recruiting. Florida was my main state, and I had some great players set for visits in December, and I'd check that weather on Tuesday, Wednesday, and if it was bad, I was going to change it to the following, couple weeks. And it was a bad winter. We kept putting it off, and finally in January, it was a great story. These 2 players from Florida arrived. They don't have coats, so I gave them coats to wear for the weekend. And I mean, they looked at me like I had 7 heads. It was so cold. There was so much snow that I ended up losing those 2 players, ironically, to the Florida Gators. But yeah, those are tough winters, man. Great summers, tough winters.
You get your first head coaching job at Bowling Green. And you were coaching, correct me if I'm wrong, when you were at Notre Dame, you were actually coaching on the defensive side of the ball, right?
No, I've been other than 1 year offense my entire
career. Okay. But when you come into Bowling Green, had anybody seen anything with this style of offense now you're starting to run? I'm not going to say that you necessarily invented it, but all of a sudden you're doing things that nobody's seen before.
Yeah, Dan Mullen was my graduate assistant, and we started studying. Scott Linehan was the coach at the offense coordinator at Louisville, a good friend of mine. We started studying from him, and Rich Rodriguez was an assistant at Clemson. He just started looking into the spread offense. Joe Tiller was at Purdue, and he was more of a they called it basketball and grass. So we wanted to do a spread, an I formation mentality. That means toughness, run the ball, but from a variety of spread sets that and make defenders defend the entire width of the field with bubble screens and get the ball out fast and utilize a quarterback in the run game. So really, our version of the spread offense started in 2001. Dan Mullen, myself, and Greg Brandon. And it was incredible. We would sit in those meetings. Our wives weren't moved yet. So we would sit in that meeting room for 10 hours a day and just put this thing together. And there was really no prototype. And then we just kept adapting. Dan Mullen who's a great football coach for a long time. We took it to Utah, adapted it to Alex Smith, and that's when it really, really took off. The spread offense became the spread offense in 2003 and 4.
You really did at Utah that second year where you go undefeated, and back in those days it was a BCS. And you guys broke through, not unlike what the University of Cincinnati did last year in breaking through and getting in the college football playoff Final Four. But you taking that Utah team, that was a huge deal in college football when you got into that game out in Arizona.
Yeah, that was kind of the broke the ice of the BCS. That was, you had TCU, we had Boise State, and you had Utah. And that was when I got into it a lot of times with some media people when they said, you're not a BCS school. And I was thinking, we have better players than most BCS schools. What are you talking about? We're selling out our stadium, and I got real defensive of our players because for someone to say we don't have BCS players, we had better players than we had the first pick overall in the NFL draft with Alex Smith. So it really gave us a little chip on our shoulder, and our players really thrived. Our 2014 team, that team could have beat anybody in America. We didn't have the depth. And I joke around with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush a lot because they won the national title in 2004, and I said, you're lucky you didn't have to play that Utah team because we would have got after you. And they laugh about it, but that was a great football team, and that opened the door, I believe, to Boise State the next couple of years, TCU the next couple of years, and a team like Cincinnati.
When you go to Florida, look, and it's not diminishing, the Mid-American Conference. I talk all the time about my alma mater, Ohio University, and how great they're playing right now and going to the MAC title game. So I'm a big MAC fan and out there at Utah. But now you're walking into the Lions' den, so to speak, by going down to the University of Florida and in the Southeastern Conference. When you walked in that Florida program, what did you see and what needed to change?
I'll tell you what, that was an education that it took us a minute to just realize the talent, the size of those big people that can run and the athleticism in the SEC. Every story you ever heard is true about the difference between the SEC, especially the defensive linemen, and anywhere else in the country, just watching the NFL draft. So we ran a style of offense that was really good in the MAC. Once again, not disrespecting the MAC, and then the Mountain West or the Mountain West Conference out in Utah. But the players change. We get down there, you're blocking first rounders every week on the defensive side of the ball. We really, really struggled the first 5, 6, 7 games. And then we played awful against LSU. We had a bye week following that, and I summoned Dan Mullen and Steve Adazio, our line coach, to my house. We started at 2 a.m. and we finished late that next afternoon. And we redid the offense on napkins, on paper, because we ran out of paper because it was at my house, about 6 pots of coffee. And we adapted the offense to the SEC. That means we took a linebacker, moved him to fullback. We started changing the launch points of the quarterback. We did a lot. We added a gap scheme, the counter and power, and we changed the entire offense. And from that point forward, that offense was really hard to stop in the SEC.
Well, the next year, you win the whole thing. You're juggling the quarterback. You've got the senior who was there, and you've got this emerging young guy named Tim Tebow. When you were recruiting Tim Tebow, what did you see he's everything that's right in my opinion, and I got killed for saying this during the national championship game when I did both of your championship games, wins over Ohio State and Oklahoma. But what an amazing young man and an incredible player. That had to be an awesome experience to coach Tim Tebow.
Yeah, he's everything you said, and it just rattles me when someone says they get killed for saying great things about Tim Tebow. And I remember, same thing. There would be people just, you got to get a life. If that's something that you feel that, that's that important to you, to tear someone apart like that, you got to move on. But I recruited Tim. There was a lot of pressure at Florida to recruit him. At first, I didn't want to. We had an awkward throwing motion. A lot of teams were even saying he wasn't going to be a quarterback. Same thing they said in college. Same thing they said in the NFL. But then when you witness what kind of leader and tough, he's the toughest player I've ever coached. And that's not being disparaging to any other great players, but tough as nails. And as competitive human being as ever been around. So we had him for 4 years. He won a Heisman, was part of one national championship, was a starter on another national championship. It was a first-round draft pick. Number 2 quarterback ever, most efficient quarterback ever to play college football. And more importantly, he was a great leader.
Your health starts to become an issue as the years pass in Florida. You win the second national championship, as I mentioned, and now health scares. What got your attention that maybe I got to get out of this?
Well, it started, and I never lost sleep. I never, in 2005, things were happening to me that I'd never experienced, Tom. That, I would have anxiety attacks where I would start sweating and my hands would start shaking, and I would not sleep. I would not take care of myself, and your body starts shutting down on you, and that was happening. And I became addicted to Ambien. Where that the only way I would get 4 hours sleep was I'd take one, and then I ended up taking two, and it was terrible. And then I started losing weight, and this is after we're winning like crazy. 2006 we win it. 2007 I'm not feeling well, and I'm starting having chest pains, and I go to the doctors, and I keep taking those tests, those stress tests, to find out what is it. And then a friend of mine named Randy Walker passed away, the head coach at Northwestern, a good friend, a good guy. I leaned on him for, we played him when I was at Bowling Green, and he passed away of a heart attack. And I started thinking, wait a minute now, I don't feel well. I'm having chest pains that are uncontrollable. The doctors can't, the stress tests are not showing up any, or no blockage. And then after the SEC championship game, I had a real scare, a 911 call where I lost consciousness, and that's when the thought started saying, I'm done. I don't need to do this anymore. We won a couple championships. My family means the world to me, and so that's when I stepped away from Florida.
So you go into television, and now a couple of years later, here comes Ohio State. Did you have to convince your family? I mean, you've alluded earlier if Ohio State ever called, and talking to Shelley about that if Ohio State ever called, well, now they're calling. But you're also well aware of the health issues you were having. You're starting to feel better. How hard a sell was that to your wife and your kids to go back and do it all over again?
These are some tough times. You're bringing up some memories here that were very tough. So after I left Florida, Shelley and I were out and about, and I looked at her one night, and I said, I made a mistake. She says, what are you talking about? I said, I should have left Florida. I'm not done coaching. I really believe I need to do this again. And she said, you absolutely are not. And if you do, give this time. Give it time. I was very young, still in my 40s at the time, and so I realized I'm making a mistake. And then I went into TV and really some neat things to do. And then all of a sudden, Ohio State had that Jim Tressel issue, which to this day I still can't imagine that's what happened out of it. But because Jim's a dear friend of mine, and I get a phone call, and I didn't even tell Shelley about it. I got a phone call if I would be asking if my interest in Ohio State, and of course the answer is yes. That's my home school. That's my home state. Like I said, I've been a Buckeye as long back as you could say the word Buckeye. And so we're going through the season, and once again, it's getting very serious conversation. And finally, she confronted me, and I want to say September, October, and said, I know something's going on. I said, yeah, they're going to offer me the job here, I think. And what do you think? And she said, absolutely not. She said, no, we're not moving from Florida. We love it here. This is our home. And the thing, Tom, it's amazing. I actually, in my own heart, didn't even think that way, because I thought, how could you not? We're Buckeyes. My kids weren't Buckeyes. They were Gators. They grew up in the Florida Gator world and Gator Nation, and we lived there. It was going on 7-8 years now in Gainesville. And, I just was overwhelmed with the thought of being a coach of the Buckeyes. And they went 6-7, and the way they approached me is, we need your help here, and how can you say no to that? And so we had some tough conversations. We had a family meeting, and Nicole, my oldest daughter, was very emotional for all of them because they saw what I went through, and some promises were made that I would do things differently, which I did, and they gave me the blessing at the end of the day.
The school initially is on probation because of the whole Tressel thing that happens. You go undefeated, but you can't be a part of the BCS. And now the formation of the college football playoff, comes around. And 2014, You win the national championship. Urban, I mean, if you were to try to sell that story in Hollywood, I'm not so sure anybody buys that script. And if for no other reason, the quarterback position, because to refresh people's memory, you've got this big star in Braxton Miller who's all of a sudden hurt. He's not going to be able to play quarterback anymore, right? Now you're going to start this freshman, J.T. Barrett. You go 11-1. You beat Michigan, but in the Michigan game, he breaks his ankle. Now comes some cat named Cardale Jones, and he's going to start his first collegiate start is in the Big Ten championship game. You win 59-0. And then off you go behind Ezekiel Elliott and the rest of the crew and win the whole thing. You kill Alabama, and then you whitewash Oregon. 10 years later, almost, you look back on that, and what stands out to you? I mean, I just gave a laundry list of things, but maybe that's not the thing that stands out to you.
Yeah, it was 10 days before our first game. Our best player was Braxton Miller, by far, Heisman candidate. Behind him, we had J.T. Barrett, who was a guy that had ACL surgery just a year earlier. You had Cardale Jones, who was a talented guy but had his own issues that he was dealing with. And I'll never forget on the practice field when Braxton Miller, we're bringing him along slowly, and he throws a pass to his left, only about 7 yards, and physically you hear it pop, and his arm goes numb and basically comes out of his shoulder. He dislocates his shoulder, and he's like a son to me, and he's sobbing on the ground, and the whole team stops. I stop. We all stop. I'm holding his hand, and I mean, he's in tremendous amount of pain, which is the worst part of this game. And then all of a sudden reality sets in as we got something going on here. We've just lost, by the way, we just lost our last 2 games at Clemson in a bowl game and Michigan State. And that's after winning 24 straight. We lose 2 straight. We're down a quarterback. And I'm thinking, I called Shelley afterwards and we're just talking. And I said, we're looking at a really bad year here. We just, Mike Thomas wasn't Mike Thomas yet. Zeke wasn't Zeke yet. And I had some bad feelings about this team. We were not where we needed to be. However, one of the things that I learned about, I always knew, but I really learned about that team, and the whole theme of the season was solve the mystery. And the mystery is how do you learn to put something ahead of yourself? You want to be a great husband, put your wife ahead of you. You want to be a great parent, put your children ahead of you. And our message to the team was, football, you have to be unselfish. You want to be a great teammate. Stop all the nonsense. Stop all the selfishness, laziness, all the things that hurt teams, and put your teammates ahead of yourself. And that was the theme. And I mean, I had great Curtis Grant, Joshua Perry, some of the best leaders. J.T. Barrett became a great leader. And that team became the most unselfish team I've ever witnessed. And by the way, we had great players, or we had really good players that became great players.
7 years at Ohio State, you go 83-9, and now all of a sudden the health issues spring up again. Was there a moment like you talked about in Florida where at Ohio State you're like, man, this is going down the wrong trail again?
Yeah, in 2014, ironically, the year we won it, I've always had bad headaches that go along with some of the other stuff, and they identified an arachnoid cyst right in the middle of my brain, about the size of a fist. And it's not cancerous, it's not a tumor, it's a cyst that causes really, really bad headaches. And when it ruptures, I mean, debilitating. And it happened several times. I was hospitalized a couple of times, kept it under wraps, and then finally in 2014 spring, during practice, it happened again. And I went to the doctor. They did a CAT scan. They said, we're having surgery, brain surgery, emergency. We're going to do this. You got to call your family. And they did, to relieve the pressure that was causing the headaches. And they drilled 2 holes in my head. And it was pretty scary stuff, obviously. And that's when I started to say, okay, now there's an end to this. When's it going to be? I don't want to continue. If it happened again, they told me they're not sure what they would be able to do, because you can't just keep drilling holes. And there's some alternative things about, putting a shunt in there, I think they called it. But I kind of I started putting a timeline on saying, I want it when I'm 55 years old, I'd like to be done and move on. And that's the way it worked out. And then I found Ryan Day. Ohio State means so much to me, the state, the school. And I'm very biased, but I think it's time tested. We have the best infrastructure in college football. We have the best recruiting staff, best academic. We have the best infrastructure in college football, and we couldn't lose that. And so I talked to our president, talked to Gene Smith, and said, I think we found our next coach in Ryan Day. And they really didn't know Ryan very well, and then Gene got to know him and felt the same way. And they gave us our blessing, and I decided after the Big Ten championship game at 18 that was good. That especially, we beat our rival one last time. That's 7-0, and it's time to hand this off to a younger coach and right off in the sunset.
All right, let's talk about Ryan Day and Ohio State. You're going to be at the game, part of the Fox Noon kickoff pregame show in Columbus. Everybody across the country, it'll be the most watched game without a doubt in college football this entire season. We know what happened last year, and I know you still talk regularly and have spent time around Ryan Day. The game is always important, Coach, but, I mean, for Ryan Day, is it even more so after what happened last year?
It is. That's and Ryan knows it. I talked to Ryan quite a bit. We're still very close. You think of these two coaches right now, both excellent coaches, Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day. They got two of the top 3 teams in the country playing each other for everything. And I think Coach Harbaugh is 1-5 in the game. Ryan is 1-1. And, once again, I've been accused of being overdramatic about this game. I don't believe I am. For people that live this rivalry, this never leaves you. This is something that's part of your life, and it's bigger than a game. And so this is huge. This is they both have to win this game, and there's no other way to say it. That for a lot of reasons, you got the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis the next week, college football playoff, but I think it's more important than that. It's the game. You can't lose this game.
Did you do anything different as a head coach the week of the game? I mentioned earlier, 7-0. You never lost to Michigan.
Tom, that's a great question. And Lou Holtz, my mentor, I would always ask him questions. He was like an encyclopedia for me, and he would always stop me and say, "What kind of team do you have?" So I would do a lot of things different depending upon the team I have. If I have an overconfident team, I'd kind of work them real hard, or if I had the team exactly the way it was, this is not going to be about. I would always pull the pads off early in the week because I wanted our guys fresh. I would try to back off of practice as much as possible. But it depends what kind of team you have. If you have an experienced team, you don't want to overdo it because everything's overdone in this game. Those poor players, especially with social media now, can you imagine the intensity, the intense scrutiny that they're under right now? Just the players. Old men coaches can handle it, but these players, so it's just, you got to get, as Lou Holtz would always say, you don't play the game until noon on Saturday. Don't play the game before that game.
You look at this matchup. Last year, Michigan ran the ball straight down Ohio State's throat. They were the more physical team. They were the more dominant team. There was no doubt about it. Now there are a lot of lingering questions for both teams at the running back position. Who's healthy, who can play, who can't play, so on and so forth. I guess you could probably say it about every college football game or pro football game, but does this one come down to what happens tackle to tackle?
Tom, I did some research over the years on this, and I think this is, first of all, I believe that's the foundation of football. The more equated talent becomes, it's line of scrimmage game. I think it's always going to be that way. Certainly in the north, and when you're not in the indoors, where weather and wind and rain potentially could be a problem. I don't see the elements being a problem, but the history of this game is the team that controls the line of scrimmage wins. So the Wolverines have been really dominant on both sides of the ball. Their big issue is they might have lost this tailback, Blake Corum's a Heisman candidate. We've watched him up close. I'm a huge fan of this guy, not just because he's a great player. he's tough as can be. And Ohio State also has some issues at running back where Travion, they're not sure he's going to go. Mayan Williams, they're not sure he's going to go. I understand that they're going to have Mayan. I think I heard that. So the ability to get the ball on short yardage and run the ball when you have to run the ball and not be one-dimensional, that's going to be critical. And I believe that this game will come down to J.J. McCarthy's ability to perform. He's been up and down. He's very talented. But I do believe you can stop the run. You can load the box. You can stop that run. And they're going to force the Wolverines, I really believe, to throw the ball to win the game. And that's not been their strength this year.
Should both of these teams, Coach, end up in the college football playoff?
I think on videotape as of right now, November, whatever the date is, on videotape, they are two of the best 4 teams in the country. And that's the job of the committee. So it depends on how the game goes, depends on the health of your team. If one team gets blown out, there's no chance they'll be in it. But you also have USC, who has really shocked everybody this year, and a TCU team that's been really good. So, who goes in, who doesn't. But on videotape, on tape, just purely as a football coach watching it, these two are the two of the top 4 teams in America.
Let me ask you about the college football playoff rankings that came out last night. We were talking a long time about this before you came on today. There's never been a 2-loss team that made the college football playoff since it started in 2014. LSU has 2 losses, albeit early in the season, but 2 losses. And should LSU beat Georgia, it looks like, Coach, that you'd have to take as the SEC champion LSU, and they've pretty much laid the groundwork for that to happen by ranking them ahead of USC. Were you surprised they're ahead of the Trojans?
No, I'm not. Once again, if you look on videotape, I think they're the more balanced team right now. And obviously, if they beat Georgia, they're in. They are in the college football playoff. And then now there's a huge, now Georgia is certainly the most talented team in the country. What do you do with them? If that's a close game, those 2 teams are in. A little bit like Ohio State and the Wolverines. I think those are the, those, you have to do that. But here's something else to think about, Tom, is that, Alabama, and this is not to, is just talking about schedules and who you play. Alabama lost on the road at Tennessee in the last seconds of the game and on the road at LSU in the last seconds of the game. There's not a team in the country, including Georgia or Ohio State, that survives that without a loss. That's 2 out of 3 weeks, night games in the SEC against those talented teams. So, that's where you got to really think this thing through with TCU, USC. What would what would it be like? The committee's got to really put the thought process and watch the videotape and say, okay, who are these best teams? And sometimes I think, are they qualified to do that? There are some very good people on that committee, but can they sit and evaluate? Because there's only one way to do it, and that's watch them. Not on TV, but watch the videotape and say, okay, who are the best 4 teams in America? So LSU wins that game, they're in.
I want to hit a couple of other topics before we let you go today. Number 1, are you in favor of the college football playoff expanding to 12?
I am now. I was not. I am now, and I think there's a lot of reasons. Number 1, the viewership would be immense, and it's such a great opportunity for the players. The number 2 thing is that people are starting to lose interest in bowl games, which is a shame. Teams are, whenever you see 6 to 8 players decide not to play in bowl games because the game doesn't matter as much, I certainly understand it because in the NFL, I don't like it, but I understand it. So this would give more people an opportunity to keep their teams together and have some great games down the road. The thing you have to look at, though, is the wear and tear on the body of the student athlete. You really, you don't just throw 12 games, don't just throw another game in the mix here. I don't know, do you give the players more, do you give this coaches more scholarships to work with? How does the schedule work out? Because, you start thinking, we went 14-1 in 2016. No, 14. And we beat Alabama, we beat Wisconsin, beat Alabama, beat Oregon. If they said, oh, by the way, you got one more, I'm not sure, we would have did it, of course, but I'm not sure how much you have left in that tank.
NIL. For a head coach, I mean, it's got to add now another just laundry list of headaches or potential headaches when you're the head coach of a football program like Ohio State and many, many others. Is that fair to say?
It's absolutely fair, and I think the intent, Tom, was incredible. I think it's the right thing to do. But without any real regulation, intent, that's not really what's happened. People are using it for inducements, pay for play type mentality. That's illegal, but there's really no, from my understanding of all my colleagues that I still talk to quite often, there's really not enforcement of any of this yet, because it's all new. The bottom line is, should a player be able to make some money on name and likeness, whether selling his jersey, whether signing autographs, whether business opportunities for non-revenue sports. You see people do some, have a chance to, this is America, and you have a right to do that. But what's happened is, which a lot of us thought would happen, is a lot of people are buying players. And that's, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Joe Burrow. You recruited him to come to Ohio State out of Athens, Ohio. You already had a quarterback who had proven to be a winning quarterback, had helped lead your team to a national championship, and Burrow ultimately, with your help, makes a decision to transfer down to LSU. Did you think Joe Burrow would be Joe Burrow?
No. Joe Burrow was basically under-recruited guy. Tom Herman, my quarterback coach, found him. I remember calling me and was videotaping from his cell phone, said, "I think I found your next Alex Smith." He was a state champion in basketball, elite competitor, came from a great football family. His intelligence was above, his football intelligence. You got to know him. He had a slow release. His arm wasn't very strong, and then he worked his tail off. His hardest-working guy's ever been around, and his toughness just kept leadership, kept showing up. And then he was our backup quarterback to J.T. Barrett and broke his hand about 7 days before our first game, his throwing hand. And Cardell Jones became the backup. And Cardell Jones went on to become a legend and won the national title. So that put us in a dilemma. We let both players battle for the starting spot in 2015. And that's when Joe, it was really close, but we gave Cardell the start. Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins was the backup quarterback for J.T. Barrett. And Dwayne Haskins went on to have a great year. And Joe Burrow transferred. He looked at several schools, and we still are very close to this day. He's very close to all our Buckeyes. And obviously, LSU did a great job. First year, he was just okay. He had a good year, but his second year is one of the best in college football history.
Luke Fickell, you talked about when you came in and you were brought in as a head coach at Ohio State and all the turmoil that was going on from Tressel. Fickell takes over. They finish under 500, which had never happened before or since, if I'm not mistaken, at Ohio State. You kept him on as your defensive coordinator. Was that a hard thing to do or a hard thing for him to do in hindsight, to go from being the head coach, hoping you got a chance to stay as a head coach, and now all of a sudden you're a defensive coordinator again?
Yeah, I had no intention of keeping Coach Fickell. I was already looking for defense coordinators. Gene Smith asked that I meet with him, and I said, of course. I have great respect for Luke over the years, but I felt at the time it was time for a clean break. Like you said, there was a lot of stuff. The more homework you did, there wasn't that much stuff. We lost the NCAA, took 9 scholarships from us, took a bowl game from us. They just lost to the rivals, to the Wolverines a couple days earlier. And I thought, what we're going to do, we're going to have a clean break. I'm going to get a whole new staff in here. And then I met with Coach Fickell and his wife, and they were really good on defense over the years. And I became somewhat immediate after I sat down with him. First of all, he's an incredible person. He loves Ohio State. He has a great reputation with high school coaches in this state, and he's a very good, excellent coach. So I decided to keep him. It was shocking to me, too. I prayed on it. I supped on it. And the next morning I called him up and offered him the job, and he took it. And we've remained very close. He's one of the best I've ever been around.
What are you surprised? Maybe that's not the right word. Are you amazed that he comes to your alma mater and has done what he has done here?
I'm not surprised at all. You know, you look at guys like Kyle Whittingham, who's at Utah, Ryan Day. You had Danny Mullen, who was with me, and then guys like Luke Fickell. Those guys are head coaches waiting. I mean, those guys are. You can tell very early with you. They're big picture people. They're problem solvers. They address the issues directly, which I think is a skill that a lot of coaches, when you see them fail, that's part of it. And Luke Fickell's got it all. And he's hired a very good staff. He's at a great school. He knows the school. He's recruited and developed well. So I'm not surprised at all, but I'm so excited. I'm a huge fan, obviously.
Look, every time there's a job that's open, Coach, in major college football, your name is the first one that always comes up. You walked away from it for health reasons at Florida. You walked away for health reasons at Ohio State. Does Urban Meyer want to coach college football again?
No desire. No desire. Tom, when I tell you I love what I do, it's beyond love. You know, I mean, I love, when I say love what I do, I love being a grandparent. I love living my life right now and then working on Fox with my great team that I work with. So I have no desire, Tom, to coach.
But, Urban, you're a young man. I mean, you're a young man. You know, I mean, look, you know, it may not be young when our kids are hanging around. They look at us like we're 1,000 years old, and now you as a granddad. But, man, I think there are a lot of us who just sit there and say, how in the world would this guy not come back and coach college football again?
Well, I think the game's changed. You know, I think, you know, it's a much different game than, you know, just 5 years ago, 7 years ago. And I'm not saying it's for the worse. It's actually fantastic. Viewership's never been higher. But this is a personal situation that I have had some health issues. And, you know, it seems like it's just something I really cherish the time with Shelly, the grandkids, the kids, and living life and supporting other people that, whether it be family members or colleagues in this great game. So I'm glad I'm still around the game because I love it, but no desire.
All right. Well, I know you'll be able to quench that competitive nature of yours by playing pickleball on a regular basis then. It'll have to be that.
I'm glad there's no video of that there, brother.
Yeah, you and me both. Although you and I came through when it mattered. We were down one game and we came back and rallied. Because I was in fear that if we did not come back and rally, that I was not going to leave that house in one piece. So that's the way it all played out. Hey, enjoy the game tomorrow or on Saturday. Have a great time up in Columbus. I'm taking my kids up there. We're driving up for the game. I can't wait to go. And it's going to be some kind of atmosphere on Saturday.
Well, so good to see you. So good to see you with that headset on, brother.
Thank you, man. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Tell Shelly and the kids and the grandkids we said hello.
Same to you, Tom. Thanks.
All right. Urban Meyer, kind enough to join us, and really appreciate his time very, very much. He's got a lot going on, and he took the time, and he's a good man. Known him for a long time, and I think the world of the guy. And that was great. All right, we'll take a break. Do we have a cherry on top today?
We do not have one as of right now. We can look.
Well, that's our cherry on top. Let's have an Urban Meyer. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Any thoughts from that from either the peanut gallery over here?
We'll take a quick break and then wrap it up.
We'll take a quick break and we'll talk about that interview, and then we'll call it a day. Back in a minute.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
There's 2 beds in that room. There's 2 double beds.
Boy, your
in that room. Jim wants to know, said it kind of reminds me of Mr. and Mrs. Wilson on Dennis the Menace. There are a lot of people wondering, what's going on down there. Because you've been very hard on Danae on this program. I mean, you have worn her out when it comes to her choice of accommodations on places where you guys have been staying, whether it was down in Mexico. Right. I think you referred to that 6-star resort as a dump. And then you went on to say that the house you rented down on the Gulf side of Florida here the last couple of weeks was also a dump. Anything you want to share, or would you just rather stay away from that topic?
No, we were catching a situation. There's no doubt about it. But, Casey, this is what you have to look forward to when you're married for 13 years. You see that? No action, pulling no wool, and then going back, pulling no wool. So 13 years of marriage, that's what it gets you. 2 separate queen beds. And you know who Tucker slept with last night? Danae. I'm all by myself, and don't think I'm not going to go to that Taylor Swift concert and get me some phone numbers so I can get a Mrs. Jones number 3. Because I will. I ain't messing around.
I did TJ Watt last night.
Oh, boy. Casey, you get quite the kick out of Tracy Jones, don't you?
I do. He's funny.
He's kind of taking you under his wing as like his little brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
We've got box lunch coming up. Fellas, how we doing?
Good, how are you, Tom?
What's happening? Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. You got any big Thanksgiving plans?
See, now that's it. That's a guy who's got some life about him. You 2 stiffs.
Let me tell you something. He's got some life about him for a very good reason. He'll tell you that in a minute. But let's get to your Thanksgiving plans.
I'm getting ready to jump in the car and drive to Chicago. I have a dear friend of mine. When I was doing the Cubs games, I got to be friends. We were all 25 years old, whatever, when I got the job up there back in 1989. And so I got to be buddies with a bunch of born and raised Chicago guys that, like the rest of us, were living down in the city trying to start your careers and get them going and all that kind of thing. And we used to hang out all the time. And I lived there year-round for 6 years, and I've stayed very close with all of them. But one in particular who is Greek. His last name is Panos. And so he introduced me in the years I lived there to Greek Easter and things like this. But he has, and it's like that big fat Greek wedding movie. Remember that?
Yeah.
He has anywhere from 50 to 70 people at his house, all Greek. And the only 4 non-Greeks in the arena would be my wife, Polly, and our kids, Ella, Luke, and me. And it is indescribable how outrageous this scene is for Thanksgiving.
Do they eat turkey or lamb?
No, they eat the turkey.
Okay.
They'll sprinkle in some different, sort of Greek dishes on some of the side stuff, but it's tradition. But I just can't wait. We've been going so long that we've gotten to know all of them and all the family members and all their hopes and dreams and problems and anxieties, and it's it would be a great movie for sure. What are you doing?
Well, we're going to actually head down. Well, I don't know about Thanksgiving. We don't have a whole lot of plans, but later in this week, my dear sister gets married next week down in Florida, so we're going to go down there for a week. So I actually won't be at work for the next week. But
nice.
My Thanksgiving.
Where are you going down there?
Bradenton Beach.
Oh, very nice.
Anna Maria Island.
Very nice.
Excited. I'm my sister's man of honor. So I'm staying next.
That?
Yeah, my older sister. Love her
nice.
dearly. Love her dearly.
I'll see my sister. She's in Chicago, too. Seeing her tonight, too. So
Tom,
what about you, Tracer?
I'm hosting Thanksgiving, which requires and probably will be nothing but a few long hours worth of work when I get home of cleaning things that need to be cleaned because the wife says you have to clean them.
That's
type
right.
Situations.
That's right.
Got to go and pick up some tables and chairs. Just basically going to be not the boss.
No question. And Case, what do you got going on?
Gonna go back to my house back in Blanchester, have Thanksgiving there for about a couple hours, then go to the in-laws, have Thanksgiving there, and then we're doing another one, and that's going to be the other side of my in-laws, and we're going to watch the Bengals game that Sunday.
Very nice. And Brandon, you'll be here with your family, I assume?
Yeah, of course. As you mentioned during your show, tonight's a big night for me. It's Thanksgiving Eve.
Yeah.
So
that's always one of the big nights.
I'll probably be enjoying myself a little bit tonight, and then
big time night.
Seho family. I got to be ready for the Seho family tomorrow. Watching football, turkey, all that jazz.
So there's going to be a big crowd at the Cyclone games. Is Marty calling the game?
No, we angered some people. We angered some people last time. I don't know who in their right mind takes that stuff seriously. When Tracy says Marty's coming back to broadcast the Cyclones, you got like 3 or 4 people just go off the reservation. They got an announcer. He's an outstanding announcer. Did anybody really believe he's coming back to broadcast the Cyclones? He can't even spell hockey.
Some people did, and that is what's funny about that.
That's
what's funny about the internet, the overreactions that you get.
God, I couldn't believe it. I called Trace. I'm like, dude, do I even respond to this?
You did. You're a little worried about it, but that's all right. It was funny. I thought it was humorous.
And the play-by-play voice of the Cyclones handled it beautifully.
Yeah, I thought he did an okay job.
Yeah, he did. All right, what do we got going on, fellas?
We're going to talk about the game. The big game on Saturday, some college football playoffs. The MLB Hall of Fame ballot just came out yesterday. That's something I like to talk about. So we're going to talk about that.
Him and about 10 others.
Yeah, I'm one of the few people that care about that stuff. But I'm an MLB guy through and through. Tom, can I ask you a question? You called Chicago Cubs games for a while. How long? About a decade or?
No, 6.
6 years. Seems like you almost got a vendetta against me as not me as a Cubs fan, but Cubs fans in general. Do you not like Cubs fans?
You know where all that started? All of that stuff started when I announced the 2003 National League Championship Series.
So they just
for Fox. They assumed that I would come in there and be a cheerleader for the Cubs because I used to announce the Cubs games. Well, that's not my job when you're doing it for a network. Mm-hmm. And so, had the Cubs won that thing,
you'd be celebrating.
We never have this conversation.
Right, you'd be celebrating.
But because of the way they lost, really the way they lost, especially in Game 6, and then they can't beat the Marlins number 7 starting pitcher in Game 7. They all of a sudden hate the Cubs. And you're obviously one of those brain-dead guys that thinks
Well, you just took a jab at the Cubs right there. You said couldn't beat their number 7.
It's the truth.
It's
the truth.
It's
the truth.
Doubt it.
Yeah, that's a fact. They had Kerry Wood. I think the guy's name was Brian Moeller, if I remember correct. I could be wrong
but Kerry
about
Wood
that.
did pitch Game 7.
Yeah, he did. He had a home run in Game 7.
Yeah.
Loudest I've ever heard a stadium in my life is when he hit that home run in Game 7. It was insanity because they thought they were heading to the World Series. Didn't work out.
That was one of my first baseball memories growing up, Kerry Wood's home run. I had the Cubs jacket, pitching jacket, because he used to wear it when he was on base.
That's right.
A Kerry Wood fan.
Good dude, too. Really like him a lot. Great guy. All right, boys.
I could care less about the Cubs.
Yeah, well, most watching this show don't.
Yeah.
All right.
That's here nor there.
We appreciate Urban coming on today.
You do.
We do.
Leader of men.
Leader of men.
So is Ryan Day. All right.
Luke Fickell, Brian Kelly.
Definitely leaders of men.
Trace Fowler.
No question. Head of the company. Chatterbox. Leader of men.
I don't want to go that far.
All right.
We have door frames. We got to get his head through.
You got a good point. Gentlemen, have a happy Thanksgiving to all. Much to be thankful for. Enjoy yourselves. Brandon, please be smart. I tell my 19-year-old daughter that, and I got to tell you the same thing, even at your age. Please be smart tonight. Boys. This is C.J. Stroud pass here.
Tom, I'm going to drop.
There we
in honor of the game. In honor of the game. I catch the Ohio State ball.
Dude, that is going to be, oh, boy, that's bad mojo for you.
I think catching the Ohio State ball would be bad mojo.
No. C.J. Stroud's going to be slinging it around on Saturday.
We'll see. We'll see.
Boys, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Safe travels.
Thanks for joining us.
Enjoy your drive.
Yeah.
Tom's a drive guy. Do you know that? Likes driving. I got to be honest. Anything over 5 hours?
Yep, 4 hours.
Golly. About 5 hour mark in the car, I start thinking, how much was it to fly? And exactly why didn't I do that?
There's been a few times driving to Chicago and Cleveland, which is just a 4-hour drive, where I'm like, man, I probably could have got a flight for like $80 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, you have kids, start doing the math on
there's
the flying
more
thing. You're like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe I can tough it down there. The one thing that my wife has always said about driving and flying is that you can't take the beach toys if you fly, which I just say buy them down there.
Yeah,
and then leave them.
There's shops everywhere for that. Have you heard about the Frontier flight deal that they're doing? Have I told you about this?
Oh, the unlimited.
Frontier Airlines is doing a thing, an unlimited package. Now, American Airlines did this back in the 90s and lost their butt. It was like $100,000, something like that. It was for lifetime. I think Mark Cuban is one of the famous people that got it. But Frontier Airlines is doing a year unlimited pass for $600. Now, there's some caveats. You can fly as much as you want, but the caveats are there's blackout dates, which is pretty much any major holiday where people are going to be traveling, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
I think people know blackout dates, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like the guy reading at the bottom of the script right now.
Well, I don't know. And then the second one would be that you can't book the flight unless it's within 48 hours of the flight. So you can't plan out and because they're just trying to fill the plane. But I'll tell you what, if you're a single guy with not a whole lot of routes in one area,
Great deal.
You can have some fun.
Great deal.
You can have a lot of fun. All right, let's get into box lunch. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the game, which my ignorance, I called it the big game on our Twitter account yesterday. It's just the game. You don't need to throw big. It's implied that it's big. But the game, Ohio State, Michigan.
Yep.
Trace, guys?
I think Urban brought up a good point that both of these teams possibly belong in the playoff if it's relatively close. And I don't tend to disagree with him. Obviously, some things have to happen towards the end of this year to see whether or not we feel like that's the case. For some reason, I just think that Ohio State has one of those bounce-back games, and they find a way to win this game in somewhat going-away fashion. I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout, but for whatever reason, there's just this, I don't know. It's an innate feeling that I have about the game. Last year I was on the complete opposite side.
Right. Here's the thing about this game, and this is where I'm rearing my ugly head about. I feel like I'm on a crusade against college football at times. If this game is a blowout, come on. I mean, 11-0 for the first time. These two teams are second and third in the country. I know just 7 years ago they were 1 and 2 in the country, but second and third in the country, both 11-0 for the first time in probably 2 decades. Yep. And it comes down, it's a blowout. College football needs this game.
I got a question for the chat and maybe for the audience. If Blake Corum does not play,
I think he's gonna play, right?
I'm just saying if he doesn't play, or maybe he plays a couple plays and he has to come out because he's hurt, and he's one of those gamers that wants to go out there and try to play, and then he realizes that he just can't after maybe a series or two. And let's just say that Michigan loses by a touchdown or whatever, right around that time. Maybe it's even 10. I don't know. Couldn't you make the argument that Michigan definitely deserves to be in the playoff, considering that he would be back for a playoff game? Or is that just...
So here's the thing that I've realized about the mood around this game, and it goes to what you're saying, is if you ask, most people what they think about the line being 7 points, they'll initially go like, oh, give me Michigan, 7 points. They're going to cover that. But then if you also talk to these same people about the college football playoff, they will slip. I did it this morning, slip and just say, well, what does a one-loss Michigan team look like? Because they just assume that Ohio State's going to win this game. They said, oh, Michigan or Ohio State's going to play in the Big Ten championship, and what is a one-loss Michigan team? So it's this contradiction that you are assuming with your brain that Ohio State's going to win this game because they have looked great, possibly that no team has looked better than them week in and week out than Ohio State. And then you've got this Michigan team who you are just going to assume that a one-loss Michigan team can't get in. We're assuming that a one-loss Ohio State team gets in, right? Regardless.
That's part of the thought process behind the early season and being able to play some non-conference games. Like it or not, Ohio State's going to get credit for beating Notre Dame. Yeah. And Michigan hasn't played anybody, so that's their own fault for not scheduling some decent opponents in the out-of-conference, which is why the beautiful thing about the playoff that it has done is it has made it more intriguing for bigger schools to start scheduling bigger opponents.
You don't have to go 12-0.
You don't have to go 12-0, so you're starting to get rid of those cupcake games that you traditionally would have scheduled in years past, and you see Ohio State doing a home-and-home with Alabama, or you see Ohio State doing a home-and-home with Notre Dame, and I think Georgia's obviously doing some stuff with Clemson again, and there's ways in which it makes sense to do that with the 12-team playoff when it didn't make sense to do that with 4. I just think like I said, I don't think the SEC, and this is coming from a guy that watches the league every single week, I don't think that they're as good as they have been in years past. I think that it's a relatively shallow
Georgia's the best
league.
Team in the league. That's a clear sign that they're
I'm not even saying just that. I think that Alabama in years past would curb stomp most teams in other leagues. Sure. I don't think that's the case this year. I really don't.
I think both college football and the NFL have a decent parity this year that I like to see. I'll say this about playing early season games, and this is to your point, is that they've realized that if you lose week 1, people forget about it. If you win it, it's almost like a win-win because, I mean, if you lose, you've got that loss in your record, but But we were talking about Oregon. I mean, they got throttled week 1, and by week 8, we already forgot about it because they were playing well in the Pac-12. If you lose that week 1 game, it really doesn't hurt that whole lot.
LSU is a perfect example of that.
Can only help your case. Yeah.
Got a question for you. If LSU had one loss against Tennessee and they played Florida State the last week of the season as a rivalry game, and they lost to Florida State, would they get in if they beat Georgia with 2 losses? I don't think so.
Well, that's another thing too. I mean, if you looked at Ohio State, Michigan, if they played week 3, we'd just be assuming that both these teams are going to make the college football playoff, regardless of
Ohio State in 2015, Everett brings up, the only reason Ohio State got in 2015 is because they literally won like 60-0 or whatever it was. Like they beat Wisconsin, I think, so bad that you had to be like, this team has to be in the playoff.
Right.
And they proved the committee to be accurate in that statement. So,
now something you're passionate about.
Or he's talking about the 2015 team. I'm talking about the year in which what year was that they got
2014.
in?
It was the 2015 championship is when they won. They won in 2015.
That's the one thing about college football that always breaks my brain because it's like they said Georgia on the field last year was a 2022 national championship. Yeah. But then when it looks at and like on all of the banners and stuff, it says 2021. So it's just like.
I actually realized that when you're looking at college football final rankings, you have to do the year that the championship wasn't played in. Right. So it's like 2021 final college football playoff rankings, and they play the championship in 2022. Breaks your brain a little bit, but you have been on a crusade against Louisiana State University.
I'm so sick of tired of these guys.
In college football playoff, I mean, they just set the table. I mean, exactly what you're going to be doing later tonight, getting ready for Thanksgiving. They're setting the table.
They 100% did that.
For LSU to get in if they beat Georgia.
I think they did it
and that disgusts you.
It does disgust me because they don't deserve to be at 5, in my opinion. They don't deserve at all to be at 5. And Alabama doesn't deserve to be over Clemson with 1 loss. I don't believe that. Having said that, What they have done, just like they did with Tennessee when they made Tennessee the number 1 team in the country and they put Georgia at 3, they I feel like they set the rankings up knowing they don't mean a damn thing. And they set them up to where they're like, let's just get people talking, which we're doing. And then let's also put them in a position where there's a chance that they lose this week or they possibly get smoked in the SEC championship game, and it won't matter at all. So let's just put them at 5, piss guys like Trace off, get them talking about it, and then when Texas A&M beats LSU this week, let's act like it's a big deal.
Yeah. Trace, you a few weeks ago were arguing that you don't know if the 12-team playoff is going to be better for college football playoff.
I don't like it from the regular season.
Have you gone? I mean, is it better as a whole for college football?
Here's what I like about college football. We're going to get into this again to a small extent. I mean, I'm open to the chat as well. Here's my thing about it. I think that it's unfair for it to only be 4, but going from 4 to 12 is a big jump, right? Like it's not like we go on to 6 or 8. I would say that would continue to keep the regular season being very, very ultra important.
8 was the number that people kept insinuating, and then they threw out 12 at the last second.
Tennessee, South Carolina last week isn't a big deal if it's a 12-team playoff. Tennessee, Georgia wasn't a big deal. Ohio State, Michigan this week means, I don't want to say it doesn't mean nothing to the fan bases, but from a playoff perspective, it means nothing.
It still means, I mean.
No, it doesn't. No, it does not.
UNC Duke means a lot every time they play.
I understand that it means something from the game itself, but my point is that literally this is a playoff game. It adds to the intensity of it. When you're trailing Maryland last week as an Ohio State fan, it makes things get a little bit more concerning, or it makes it intense. Whatever term you want to use, that is the beauty. That is the beauty of college football, is that every week, although unlikely, as you've brought up a million times, it does feel one and done-ish, kind of. And it's like, if we lose this game, season could be over. When Georgia's possibly going to get upset by Missouri, if it's a 12-team playoff, I got to be honest with you, I'm not worried about it. I'm just not worried about it. Okay, we lose in Missouri, so what? We're not a 1 seed, we're a 5 seed. We're still in the playoff. We still get a chance to play for it all. And then what it does is it somewhat dilutes the regular season. And that's my concern with college football, is that we start to get away from TCU playing Baylor last week. That is, if TCU loses that game, that last-second field goal, if they miss that field goal, season's over, done. And if that's not the case, TCU's still getting in with 12. TCU, a one-loss TCU team's getting in with 12 teams. It doesn't matter anymore.
No, you're right.
That's my point about the whole thing.
I know. I understand that and you're right. It will take away from the importance of regular season games. But I think the pros outweigh the cons. And the biggest pro to me will always be that all of a sudden the national champion will be decided on the field and not in a debate room.
I'm okay with that too. I'm cool. I think Everett brings it up. I wish personally it was 6 with a couple buys, because you're going to get the same arguments you get now, but with just the fact that you have buys instead of
8 always seemed right. But
and 8, I also say this too. Like, I would love to get away. I would love. You could take my argument and just completely negate it by doing one thing, and people would say, "Oh, you can't do that." Yeah, you can. Make all of the games home field until the actual national champion.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, right, then it's like a pecking order thing. Then those losses do really matter, because home field advantage in college football is a big deal. So that in and of itself would knock it out. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen because of money. Just like everything else, it all comes back to money. The sponsorships, the bowls aren't going to let that happen, and there's going to be the big mighty dollar who's not going to allow you to have home field games with 4 teams left in the playoffs. They won't do that. So
I'm excited to see where it goes, because I think it is better for the sport. I'm tired of guys in a room, backdoor.
That is true.
Making these set and playing chess
Even
with these teams. Setting up things that might happen in the future. I'm over. And there's always going to be debate, because those 12, 13, 14 teams are going to be debating. But I would argue that more often than not, you're going to figure out who deserves to be in the top 12.
And I mean,
if it's the 13th or 14th team fighting for the 12th spot,
no one knocks the NCAA basketball tournament because there's bubble teams that don't
the
get
Final
in.
Four.
You know what I'm saying? Like the bubble teams that don't get into the tournament, you could sit there and be like, well, probably should have won a couple more of their games.
Correct.
That would have helped. The same would be said with 12. That was always the anti-college football playoff argument was like, well, you're always going to have arguments. If there's 12, then 13, 14, 15 are going to be arguing. It's like, well, at least we're not arguing over an undefeated team and a team that lost one in overtime or something of whether or not those two teams should get in. We could get rid of that. Last point I'll make about the whole college football thing, and we can jump to the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, Bengals game.
Is I think college football needs to get the first 12-team playoff. They need one of those teams that are, call it 6 through 12. They need to win. One of them needs to win a game. Because if that happens, it'll immediately validate it. And I'm worried that if in a couple of years,
it's chalk the first year.
Let's say the two. Well, I don't even think 1 year matters, but like 4 years in a row, chalk. It's like then there's going to be these concerns of whether or not kids, safety, et cetera. The one thing I have, to your point,
the 1 year for chalk is going to be there's going to be arguments, but like, this is supposed to be better, but it's chalk.
At least we get football though.
It's more games.
More football. The one thing Urban said that I don't really like at all is like the reason I'm going to concede with the 12-team playoff is like you can't sit there and be like, oh, I watch them on tape, and that's why they're better. Come on, man. Like, with all due respect, if Oklahoma played Boise State and you said these two teams have to get in the playoff, which one would you take? Like 99 times out of 100, everyone's going to say Oklahoma's the better football team.
Yeah.
But it's like that's not what makes sports great, to your point.
Right, that's a big point.
The whole thing about sports that we all love is that there's usually fairness and equity. If you work hard, you get what you put out of it. There's not a whole lot of like politics when it comes inside of a team. Now, I know you can take the rare occasion where that exists, but most times the best player plays on the team, and it doesn't matter where you come from, et cetera, et cetera. The problem that college football has right now is there is opinion that far too much comes into play, and LSU is a perfect example of that, and I can't wait for them to lose to Texas A&M. So that being said, do you want to talk about Tennessee? You're worried about these guys?
So, Casey alarmed me a little bit when you guys are making the picks, and he's like, I'm not worried about this game. I think
that was facetious.
I know that's part of his shtick. I'll say this: let's go head to head against each category here. Tennessee, Bengals. Who's got the better coach? Tennessee. Bengals got the better quarterback. Bengals got the better weapons. Tennessee's got the better O-line. Tennessee might have the better D-line. Secondary, tossing it up. I'm saying it's chalk down the middle, and then you go to Tennessee, and they just seemed to win every week. It doesn't make any sense. You watch them, and you're just wondering, this team isn't very good. And then all of a sudden, you look up at the scoreboard, and it's the fourth quarter, and you're down a touchdown, and you're just like, what the heck is going on? I've had feelings last week. I wasn't worried at all against the Steelers. I just thought we were going to go in there, and they did. They won the game. I know they were down at halftime, but they won the game. They looked great. Had a feeling. I had a weird feeling against the Browns. I had a weird feeling against the Steelers to begin the season. These weird feelings keep turning out to be true. And I'm going down to Nissan Stadium, and I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to bring a lot.
You're going to be there?
I'm going to be down at Nissan.
Live in the flesh?
We're working on tickets.
Oh, okay.
But we're going to be in Nashville at least.
They're expensive.
They're like $100+, which I've got a whole lot of stuff going.
It's just money, man.
You're right. I mean, I'm
seriously.
Right. I can't take it with me.
I think there's I'm going to say something to the people in the chat. I'm being honest when I say this. There's been times in my life where I haven't had a lot of money and I've decided to do something. Reed will tell you that I've been to places. I've decided, you know what? I know it's $400. I probably will be like,
yeah.
I've not one time, I've done this 5, 6, 7 times, not one time have I ever been like, I regret paying the money to go have that experience. Not one single time. Life is about experiences. Not that I'm trying to give a motivational speak right now, but people stop themselves from going and doing things because of money way too often. Way too often. Now, you got to take care of your bills, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But if $150, $200 dropped out of your pocket on accident, call it, on Tuesday,
you'd feel bad about it. If you went out and got a flat tire this week, would it set you back? Or are you going to kill yourself? No. Like, you might go to Tennessee, and Joe Burrow might have a game of his life, and you missed it. I'll tell you what, I've sold out 2 times in my life on tickets. One time, I sold, because I was trying to make some money, I sold Home Run Derby tickets to Great American Ballpark.
I was there.
With Todd Frazier. Sold my tickets. Season ticket holder.
How much you make on them?
I don't know, maybe a couple $100.
That's
to be
it?
honest with you. Well, I'm saying, like, yeah, you buy them for whatever, $50, $60. You sell them for $250. What do you make, $200?
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
Steve didn't
That's
do
right,
it.
Steve.
He said, let's go to Qatar. That's awesome. Sir Boy's going to the game. Heck yeah. You know,
I sold Frazier tickets. I mean, that could have been one of the best experiences that I had as a Reds fan.
Yeah.
Maybe ever at this point. Who knows? Maybe ever. Sold those. And I sold Notre Dame tickets that I won and I didn't win. I bought them at a fish fry. Notre Dame versus Georgia tickets. I sold them. I made
I like that you went to a fish fry. Good Catholic of you.
I made $300-400, whatever. But I could have gone into Notre Dame Stadium and watched Georgia win a football game. That would have been great. And I lost both chances. Go ahead.
You're talking me into it.
If you don't go to that game,
you'll be disappointed in me.
Very disappointed in you.
Here's the thing that is awesome about people our age, opposed to a generation older than us. Our parents, people older than us, they spent their money on stuff. People our age and consumers and industries have realized this. We spend our money on experiences, and I like that better.
Way better.
It is much better. We will spend more money to go do something as opposed to have something. And I'm going. I'm sold. I'll figure out a way.
If I was an Ohio State fan, right? And again, you got to be somewhat responsible with this. But I would want to be at that game this weekend. Just saying.
Do you buy stuff, Casey, or do you do experiences?
Say that again.
Do you spend money on stuff or experiences? Because I'm experiences. I'll wear the same tennis shoes for 5 years, but I'll burn $150 to go to a Reds game and go to the bars afterwards. And
last year I was definitely an experience guy because.
Oh, you have a house now. It's different.
Yeah, but to your point, like we went to the Baltimore game, my fiance and I.
Yeah.
And she was just like, we got to go to that game. I mean, this is a big game this year. And
you dished it out. You figured it out.
We're like, oh, they're going to kill them, so we just got to go and see what happens. And it ended up being the 525 game.
Oh, that was awesome, yeah.
It would have been a terrible decision not to go. So, and I'm going to tell you this.
Ooh.
I just want you to answer a few questions for me.
Sling them. I'm ready. I got them.
Are the Bengals better this year than they were last year?
Yes.
Answer is yes.
Yeah.
Then are the Tennessee Titans better than they were last year?
I don't know.
What an elementary.
I don't know.
Answer's no. Answer's no. So just off those two answers alone, the Bengals are going to whoop some ass. These Titans fans, they just think, oh, we lost a close game. This is unfair. Like, we're going to show them.
Can I tell you?
What do they think?
Can I tell you a story about Titans fans 2 years ago? So 2020, Titans came up to Paul Brown Stadium. I went to the game. We're tailgating before the game. Bunch of Titans fans, because this is when the Bengals were bad. More Titans fans than Bengals fans. And these Titan fans, they're taking me under the wing like, hey, you got it. Because Titans were good. This was the first year of them being good.
They whooped them.
Oh, you guys got. I'll tell you what, that Joe Burrow, he's not bad. You guys are gonna be good in a couple years. I mean, I know you're taking it on the chin right now, but it's just whatever, man. It's gravy. Then the Bengals whoop their ass. They whooped their ass at Paul Brown Stadium. I left early because they were up like 2 touchdowns. I mean, kicked their ass, and I'm waving to these Titans fans, and I'm like, y'all come back, you hear? You're welcome anytime. And this big, beefy guy, looks like he could have been blocking for Derrick Henry during the game, comes running up to me and is willing to fight me. And I'll tell you what, I was scared shitless. I ran. I didn't want to fight. I wasn't about to fight that day. No way, no how. You got to realize when you can win a fight, that was not an instance I was going to win that fight, and I chickened out real quickly.
Nothing wrong with that.
That being said, I'm going to be talking a lot of shit on Sunday if I go to the game. During the game, even if we're losing,
I'll just be like, hey, you guys remember that divisional game a year ago? Must have been real good around here.
Reed's that guy.
Oh, I'll be that guy. You got to talk crap afterwards.
Reed's going to be that guy.
I'll tell you what, the Titans, just to give you a more factual, we match up way better against them than they do us, and we proved that since 2020. We proved that.
We'll see how it goes. I'll leave it at that.
I'll say this.
I don't think that it's going to be a walkover, obviously, but I also think that the Bengals are the better team.
You'll like this, Trace. Guess what Tennessee is? It's a sports betting state. I might go down there.
Okay.
Might open up a new app, something that I don't already have an app. You get free bets.
Yeah.
Whatever the tickets cost. Might just put it into that account. And do I bet the Bengals or do I bet the Titans?
No, I would bet the Bengals. You know what I would do?
Because if I bet the Titans, I win. I win either way, right?
The more you're talking, so you do it however you want. But you definitely. What do the tickets cost? $150?
Yeah, about $150.
Right, so you're in it for what? $300?
$300 from
all right. So you just go out there and you put $150 bet on whichever side you want. If you want to go in there and just risk it all.
Don't hedge the heart. Don't hedge the wallet.
You want to walk out of there feeling real good. You go in there with a buy one, get one free ticket walking out of the stadium. If you want to feel okay no matter what, you go in there and the Bengals win and you might have paid for an extra ticket. So what? Or just don't bet at all.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of bets, and I want to run this across you.
Sure.
System bet here.
Yep.
The Texas Christian University Horned Frogs.
Yeah.
10-point favorites against a 4-7 team. A team that has lost 7 of their last 8 games at Iowa State, and everyone's betting Iowa State.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen that too. Well, I'm not enough people are betting Iowa State for me to jump all over.
It's like 60.
But yeah.
Yeah. So
the ones that I seen were Alabama looks like they're gonna blow the brakes off of Auburn.
Vegas has no clue what to do with TCU, do they? They are just befuddled with them at this point.
Yeah, we'll see.
We won the system bet with Baylor.
Sir Boy, why are you disappointed in me?
He's disappointed
because I didn't fight that guy.
That's right. Yep. All right, let's jump to MLB Hall of Fame ballot.
Okay.
I have no idea what this even is. I'll be honest with you. I'm so talk to me like I'm 5.
Okay. So every year they send a ballot out to 2 beat writers from every sports team, from every city, and they give it out and they give a ballot. You can vote for up to 10 people on this ballot, and then a player has to get 75% of the votes to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. There had been a huge back catalog of people that were on the ballot, because if you get less than 5%, you wished off. So they put people like Bronson Arroyo's on this year's ballot just because he had a good enough career to get honored to be on the ballot. He won't get 5% of the vote. He'll be gone after this year. And they usher a new one. But there'd been a big back catalog because all these steroid users had been on there for so long. They hadn't gotten the 75% to get off, and they've had just enough votes. So people like Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Roger Clemens, all these guys. I think even Curt Schilling, who wasn't a steroid user but was on the ballot at the same time, had been on there. They're all gone, and there's a whole new caveat of people. Casey, I believe Paul, my apologies.
Thanks,
Paul,
Ryan.
Brandon. Yeah, I deserve that. There's a graphic and you can see the Hall of Fame ballot. And you know what, Trace?
Yep.
I'm simply going to go down this ballot.
We got graphics.
Yeah, we got a full 10 things. I'm going to go across, and I'm just going to give you a name.
Yeah.
And you tell me yes or no if they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, I will openly admit that I don't know all of these.
And I'll tell you
I don't know what
yes
their
or no.
statistical etc.
I'm gonna make that a little bit bigger.
That's fine.
There you go.
I can see it.
Okay.
See fun. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Bobby Abreu.
Don't know enough about him to make a really strong opinion either way, but I'm gonna go with no.
He's a guy that you actually should look more into. I'm not saying he deserves
fair.
to be in,
I'll be honest.
But he's a guy you should look more into.
Some of these guys I will have a strong opinion on. He's not one of them.
He had 300 home runs, 300 stolen bases. Only like Willie Mays and Barry Bonds are in that category.
Okay.
Bronson Arroyo.
No.
Carlos Beltran.
Was he? How long was he in the league for?
9-time All-Star, probably about 20 years. You ready for this? 460 home runs, 2,700 hits.
I think he's one of those guys I kind of put a little circle next to, and then when I get to my last final 8, 9, or 10 guys I'm allowed to put on the ballot, I might put him on.
Carlos Beltran, he's a yes for me. I'd say he's a top 5 switch hitter all time. You're talking Pete Rose, Mickey Mantle, Eddie Murray, Carlos Beltran's right there.
Yeah.
All right, Mark Burley.
Mark Burley. I can't believe these names are on here. Mark Burley?
Threw a lot of innings, but probably a no.
No. Okay.
Okay.
I was like, what?
He's better than some others. Matt Cain.
Even Matt Cain, no.
Perfect game.
Okay.
No. Well, they just, like I said, these guys get honored.
Fine, Matt Cain. Yeah, they honor them by saying it.
It's like being on the ballot for a homecoming court.
It's like the wealthy, not the wealthy, but it's like the general managers or the owner's great nephew's son gets drafted in the 29th round, and next thing you know, he can say he got drafted by the Reds, and somehow that's a part of his resume for the rest of his life.
It's like these college and high school league giving a sportsmanship award to just a senior that had been in the program for 4 years, kind of like that. If you had a decent enough career, you could throw him. R.A. Dickey.
No.
Okay. Jacoby Ellsbury. I can't believe he's been out of the league for 6 years. But
yeah, like these names, I thought he was still playing.
Yeah, me too.
No.
Andre Ethier.
No.
J.J. Hardy.
No.
All right, we're getting into a good one now. Todd Helton.
Oh. Yes.
I'm a yes with Todd Helton too.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, here's a fun one. Torrey Hunter.
Torrey Hunter's a weird one because I didn't really. How long? I'd have to see. This is one of those things where I'd say he's close.
It's close.
I'm not going to say yes or no.
I'm going to skip a few. Do you think Omar Vizquel deserves to be in?
I don't know offensively.
So here's the thing: if you're a pro Omar Vizquel guy, you should probably be a pro Torrey Hunter guy because they were both glove first guys, and Torrey Hunter was a much better hitter.
Yeah, Torrey Hunter is a much better hitter than Omar. I don't know. Close.
Andrew Jones.
I think Andrew Jones had a sneaky, very, very good career, and I would say yes.
Andrew Jones is, if you look at his defensive stats, is a top 10 defender of all time. Hit 460 home runs. You know who he is? He's Ronald Acuna right now. That's how good he was in the 90s. He's like Ronald Acuna.
But he did it for
and then he just got
a
really
long
fat.
time.
Then he just got really fat.
Tough.
Jeff Kent.
I don't know enough about Jeff Kent, to be honest with you. He's a good player, though.
He was a really good player. I'm a yes with Jeff Kent.
Okay. What's the blue and black mean?
The blue means that they're new to the ballot this year.
Okay. Yep.
John Lackey.
No.
3-time World Series champion, but you're right.
No.
Mike Napoli.
No.
Johnny Peralta.
No.
All right. Here we're getting into some fun ones now.
Andy Pettit's going to be a tough one.
Andy Pettit.
This is where not having only. I'm going to go yes with Andy Pettit.
Andy Pettit, I have a lot of respect for because he was the first guy that got in trouble for steroids, and he just outwardly was like, "Yeah, I used them."
Yeah, I think the steroid thing, you have to take into account a little bit of who they were before that, and then on top of that, if most of the league was using it, then let's stop holding it against everybody.
Yeah, and it wasn't. They didn't actively sought out people that were using it. It wasn't in the bylaws that it was illegal.
Yeah, I'm with you. So Andy Pettit's a yes. Manny Ramirez.
I'm a no on Andy Pettit.
Okay, you're no on Andy Pettit.
Manny Ramirez is one of the best right-handed hitters I've seen.
Yes, that's a no-brainer.
Alex Rodriguez.
Is Manny Ramirez why? Are you telling me that Manny Ramirez wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, and that means to tell me that sometimes it just matters how many people are on the ballot?
Really wasn't even close.
That's wild. He's a guaranteed Hall of Famer.
Alex Rodriguez.
Yes, he's in. And I forget the whole steroid stuff. My thing with the steroids is they need to be in. Put them in.
I agree. Alex Rodriguez, here's a hot take for you guys. Best infielder of all time. Greatest infielder of all time. 700 home runs, 3,000 hits. Greatest infielder of all time.
Is Francisco Rodriguez.
K-Rod.
Yeah, that's the closer.
Yeah, all-time saves in a single season. Came up in the 2002 World Series.
I'm going to say no.
No?
No.
Relievers are weird.
Well, I'm not saying never. I'm just saying you gotta be somewhat smart here, and you get 10 votes. You can't take, especially if it's his first ballot. I know he needs to get 5% to stay
I can be talked off of K-Rod. This is one of the greatest takes that Trace Fowler has ever said about Scott Rowland. He said, if Scott Rowland isn't in the Hall of Fame, then the Hall of Fame should cease to exist. Right. Scott Rowland should get in this year.
Don't have one.
He's at 70% of votes.
Scott Rowland is he is the definition of a professional baseball player. in my opinion.
Great glove,
all around,
great hitter,
great player. Just a
guy
solid
you want in
guy.
your locker room.
And on top of that, very, very consistent of being on the field. You know, this guy was dependable, and you knew what you were getting out of him. And I just think that's one of those things where if that guy doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, forget it. I'm being serious. I will never look at the Hall of Fame the same. So, Jimmy Rollins? No.
Gary Sheffield. 500 home runs.
I'd have to look it, but I like Gary Sheffield a lot.
Gary Sheffield's a great hitter. He's
Houston
definitely
Street, no.
Gary Sheffield's definitely in the Wiffle Ball Hall of Fame. I mean, if you didn't play Wiffle Ball with Gary
That's
Sheffield
right.
stance, you're doing it wrong.
weren't living right.
Houston
life
Street's
right.
a no. Omar Vizquel.
Vizquel is going to be a maybe.
I'm
I
a
just
hard-
don't know enough about
I'm a
this.
hard-
Billy Wagner, I'm a hard yes on.
Billy Wagner is awesome. Great story about Billy Wagner. Right-handed. He's naturally right-handed. Everyone knows the story, but he's naturally right-handed. Broke his arm as a kid.
Right.
Taught himself how to throw left-handed. Just happened to throw 100 miles an hour as a left-handed thrower.
Right.
Fun to name. Jared Weaver, no. Jason Worth, no.
Correct. Jason Worth, he's on the Hall of Fame ballot, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Who's the worst player on this ballot? R.A. Dickey? Gotta be, right?
Yeah.
Mike Napoli? I mean, they're terrible. Bronson Arroyo's close, too.
Bronson Arroyo, reliable guy, but yeah. I mean,
whatever.
Jason-
Andre
Jason
Ethier
Worth.
was terrible, too.
All right.
All right, that's it. You can take that off. I don't even know what the next thing was. Oh,
I do.
Mount Rushmore of Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Now, I've got a graphic for this. Casey, it's in your email. Do you have that ready to roll?
I will get it ready here in a second.
All right, so let me tell you this. So Thanksgiving is a lot of people's favorite holiday. It's a great holiday. Get around, be with family. You normally have some family traditions that you do. Obviously, the great food, a lot to be thankful for, and it kind of ushers in the holiday season, right? 100%. It's opening day for the holiday season. So I put together a Mount Rushmore of Thanksgiving things, and I ordered it with the president. So Casey, go ahead and put this on the screen.
He's getting it.
So you got Thomas Jefferson, who's the worst president up there, but still part of my Mount Rushmore is a Mouse family tradition, 5Ks. This is a device.
Are you kidding me?
I'm a turkey trotter.
Oh, my God.
We've been doing this for a long time.
What's worse, turkey trot or family photos during a Bengals game?
Family photos during a Bengals.
I don't.
So here's the old family tradition. My grandpa Nick was a big runner, so we've always been doing these turkey trots. And part of the tradition, as the Mouse family likes to drink a little bit, we get some donuts, and we get a 12-pack of Busch Light.
Yes.
And when we get done with the race, we pop open the Ross Bakery donuts, we crack open a Busch Light, and you'll be seeing me at Markham Park in the Hamilton Turkey Trot carrying on that tradition. I got Mariana signed up. God knows she ain't gonna run. She'll walk the entire way. But I'm excited for that. Going on. Thanksgiving, Mount Rushmore, you got to have the turkey. And by turkey, I mean the Wild Turkey 101 bourbon. It's nice to have a nice tall glass of bourbon while making the food, enjoying the day. And for any bourbon drinkers, I don't know if there's any bourbon drinkers watching this show right now. I got fired up because before this show, I got an email that I'm getting an E.H. Taylor barrel proof bourbon. That's like an $800 bottle. I'm getting it in the lottery, $70. I was fired up for that. Rounding out my route.
Are you going to sell it?
It's we'll see. We'll see how much I need money for Christmas presents.
Here we go.
All right, stuffing. Are you guys in or out on stuffing?
Don't sell it. How about that?
I'm all in on stuffing. Stuffing is without a doubt the best Thanksgiving food. I will go back for seconds, thirds, fourths. Give me stuffing. And then finally, on the Mount Rushmore, what's Thanksgiving without some football? It's become a trend to just watch the Detroit Lions lose football games.
Is it stuffing or dressing?
Stuffing. Absolutely. If you ask my sister-in-law, who's from Arkansas.
There you go. That's what I learned that living in
calls it
Louisiana
dressing.
and Georgia. I heard dressing. I'm like, oh, we got ranch? What are we putting on here? Stuffing is amazing.
All right, you can take that off. Trace, do you have top 4 things you like about Thanksgiving?
I would say it's all food related. I don't really the football.
You don't have any traditions?
Traditions? No.
You don't run a 5K?
Nope.
You
don't do the 5K.
You don't do the turkey bowl?
Don't do Turkey Bowl. Nope, don't do any of that.
Seems like a beautiful time to start one up. Are you having the entire Reed family over?
I'm not sure exactly what's going on. My wife wanted to host Thanksgiving, so that's what we're going to do, and I'm sure she's just calling me. She's got probably a laundry list of things that we have to do. The beautiful thing about I'll digress. The beautiful thing about sometimes hosting things, in my opinion, it's like
you sign up for stress?
I just don't really care a whole lot what other people think.
I agree.
So and I'm not saying it's a bad thing to want to make sure that everything's perfect for other people coming to your house, but there's just something about the stress of it it doesn't make it worth it. It's like, what's the point? I mean, does anyone really care if the corner of that bookshelf is spotless or not? Probably not. But that's what this comes to be.
You want to know the worst part about hosting a big family gathering? You can't leave. Love your family. Everyone loves their family. But you get into Thanksgiving, it's getting late in the evening. You're like, oh, man, I've had enough. I mean, my cousin over here is just talking my ear off. Don't want to talk to him anymore. You can't get out of it when it's your home. You're at the will of everyone else, and you can't push people out. Be like, all right, it's time. Get on out of here. We fed you. Had a nice little time. You can't get out of it. That is the worst part about hosting. And also, why do women sign up for stress? That's all it is. It's stressful.
I can't agree more.
Gosh.
Yeah, I don't know.
When you're a grandparent, then you have people over, right? You want to see your family come together.
That's here nor there. Maybe my wife's watching the show. I can't tell you how excited I am to host this Thanksgiving. I would say I'm a big sweet potato guy. I like sweet potatoes. Sweet potato casserole, underrated.
Yeah.
Underrated dish. I'd say the most underrated dish is probably some kind of corn pudding that I.
Oh, cornbread pudding?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
But otherwise, yeah, I like it all, to be honest. I don't think there's anything. Only thing I don't like is cranberries. You cannot talk me into
cranberry sauce is bad. We got
not even sauce, not the sauce, but like you know what I'm talking about, like the
the actual Yeah.
They're like circles, circle slices.
Yeah, terrible.
Man, why do people like that?
The perfect plate. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, a roll with butter.
Yeah.
And any type of corn, even if it's just corn. Side of corn or cornbread, something with corn. That's my perfect dish.
I skip out on the mashed potatoes.
What?
I need more space. I need more space for stuff I like more.
Is that not a top side for you? Yeah, like just in life in general?
That's a bad take.
Ooh. Give me stuffing over mashed potatoes.
Do we have a snack today or no?
We do not.
No snack? Okay.
No snack
Reed.
You didn't bring a turkey?
I don't want to say Reed's slacking, but
I slacked. No, there's no doubt about that.
Reed's slacking.
We gotta get this wheel of
lunch.
Got a wheel
lunch. We need some input from the chat as always. Deviled eggs, Sean Dixon pipes up. Those are fantastic. I love some deviled eggs.
I'm outlawed from deviled eggs in the family.
See, Everett and Sir Boy Wonder are on my side with this. You got to have both.
Corn pudding's great.
Good point.
Sir Boy. Yeah, let's get some wheel of lunch.
Do the United States stand? Someone give me some hope. Steve's in the chat. He's a big soccer guy.
Saudi Arabia won.
Do we have a chance on Friday? Do we have a chance? I mean, just a little bit of one. Like, are we
plus 500? So I'll give you a comparison.
Penn Station and Jeff Ruby's. That's what Sir Boy Wonder said to put in here.
Penn Station needs to be on there twice because
Paul's
not here.
I love some Penn Station.
So in U.S.'s odds against England tomorrow are plus 510 to win. South Carolina's money line against Clemson's right around that.
By the way, that's another one I like. I like Clemson a lot to beat South Carolina. What is the money line for A&M to beat LSU?
What time they play? They play in the evening?
I'm not sure, but
go Tigers.
Billy Yanks wasn't bad, Everett. I got like a mac and cheese.
Yeah, Billy Yanks was great.
Jalapeno situation. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. I like the atmosphere in there though. I was a big fan of that. And I didn't get what they were most known for, which I don't know. Is that burgers, I guess?
Burgers and bourbon.
So I hold judgment to a strong degree on them.
The money line for Texas A&M is plus 320.
If Gio plays. Steve's saying something about Gio. Do anyone in this room know anything about Gio? We don't.
No. Giovanni Bernard?
Don't think we're talking about Giovanni Bernard.
Texas A&M's plus 320.
Texas A&M.
It's plus 320.
So,
Oh, Popeyes.
So it's almost like
let's
close
throw Popeyes
to
on there.
double.
Ooh, the Avenue. That's a good call, sir, boy.
I'm just going back to this, Reader. So do you not like mashed potatoes?
Love
in general?
mashed potatoes.
Okay. Just
I get mashed potatoes a lot throughout
Okay.
the year.
Okay, just making sure because like Popeyes, that you get that box it's almost like a box lunch. You get your chicken tenders,
go.
you get your gravy and mashed potatoes.
All right, let's spin this wheel. You got that thing ready?
So I have Penn Station twice.
Next to each other.
That's fine. Toss it on there. Let
We
the
threw
chat see.
Sonic on there. Love that. That's basically no lunch.
I'm banking
Sonic.
That's no lunch.
I'm banking for Penn Station or Popeyes.
Sir boy, I'm gonna tell you right now, sir boy, we have some real problems if this lands on Sonic.
All right, here we go.
Does Sonic even serve food?
They have the rollerblades, right? Oh no, don't do it. Get out.
Popeyes is gone.
They got a good chicken sandwich. But yeah. Ooh, Firehouse sounds pretty good.
Remember when Popeyes couldn't even handle
serve-
the demand of
You're
the
right.
chicken sandwiches?
Yes, they do.
Here we go.
Get Sonic out of here.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
Yes.
Stop,
Get
stop,
him
stop,
out of
stop,
there.
stop,
Get him out. Stop.
Yes.
Needed that. Needed that.
I think we should put the wheel with no colors again, all one color, just so we are clueless about where it's ending.
You got a general idea, but
All right,
yeah, you
so
don't really know.
50% Penn Station, Chipotle is 25.
I like where we're at.
I like where we're at.
We can't lose now.
Yep. We're in a real good spot, as they say.
Oh,
We're
shit.
gonna go
Penn
back to back
Stations.
Penn Stations losing. All right.
Okay.
All right, Penn Station and Chipotle are just top notch for me.
Yeah.
Firehouse, I can do that. Meatball one the other day was great.
Oh, my bad. Here we go.
I think the Buckeyes are in a good spot, sir boy.
See ya, Firehouse. We're winning today, baby.
You don't like Firehouse?
I think it's good. I just prefer Chipotle or Penn Station.
This is
All
dynamite.
right, what it lands on. Oh, hang on. I need to add it, right? Need to add the.
The what?
What?
Because if it ends on the other one, so he's got to put two more in.
I feel like when we do that though, it's automatically gonna.
Wait, what? Why are we adding two more here?
Because this
It
software
always-
is so bad that we automatically land on the opposite one no matter what when you spin it.
Ah, so this is just adding the
This
odds.
is like just adding some random.
All right, here we go.
Sir boy.
Whatever it lands.
It's gonna be one hell
I
of a
kind of
week.
want Penn Station.
If UGA and Ohio State play, it's gonna be.
All right.
I didn't want Chipotle, but I'll eat it. It's fine with me.
It's gonna be something.
All right.
All right. Well, enjoy your Thanksgiving. I'll tell you one thing that you can do for yourself. Not even just for yourself, but more importantly for your family. If you are the wagering type, you go and you take whatever money you think that you might have as discretionary income, as they say, and you go put that on Texas A&M. Put a little bit of money on the money line as well, and you will be very pleased come Saturday evening. And then when you wake up on Sunday, you'll have to pinch yourself and remind yourself it was true.
We have breaking
you
Bengals
did just
news.
win all that money. We have breaking news.
Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow says he expects Jamar Chase will play on Sunday.
Boom. Heard it
Yeah.
here first on the box lunch.
There you go.
Take care, everybody. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. We appreciate you always being in the chat.
Happy
and
Thanksgiving.
be safe out there. See you, everybody.